Chapter 246. I really don't know what Chu Luiyue is thinking. Why is she participating at this time? There are only 2 hours left. What else can she do? Yeah, Sheng Yiming and Su Bai are both true geniuses. But they also spent nearly a day to solve the 4th round and enter the final round. Isn't she just making a fool of herself by coming here now? Sai, you have to think for Tianlu Academy. They only have Chu Luiyue left now. Only one? You're saying it as if she can really win, haha. Almost everyone was not optimistic about Chu Luiyue. Even the people from Tianlu Academy were worried. Although no one said anything, the atmosphere was very solemn. This was especially so after seeing Si Ting return. Even Si Yang, who was always jumpy, did not dare to go forward and say anything. He could only obediently stay at the side and try his best to reduce his presence. He could not casually provoke Big Brother in his current mood. He clasped his hands together and started praying sincerely in his heart. Damn pervert, you must get first place. You must get first place. Suddenly, there was a commotion around the arena. Si Yang turned his head in surprise and saw that everyone was looking at Chu Luiyue with subtle expressions. He followed their gazes and immediately saw that a star had lit up on the stone platform in front of Chu Luiyue. F***ck. Si Yang rubbed his eyes hard and looked at it carefully again. That's right. Chu Luiyue had really solved the first round. She had entered the second round. Isn't this too fast? She was called a damn pervert. But she was really that perverted. Not only Si Yang, but everyone in the arena was stunned by Chu Luiyue's extraordinary speed. Wait, did I see wrongly? Chu Luiyue has actually solved the first Xian formation. No, you didn't see wrongly. I think so too. It seems to be true. It can't be. Didn't she just go up? Although the difficulty increases with each level, the first round shouldn't be so easy to solve, right? Didn't you trap a lot of people just now? How did she do it? This commotion also attracted the attention of Sheng Yiming and Su Bai. Both of them turned to look at Chu Luiyue. The first star had indeed lit up on the stone platform in front of her. As for her, her expression was still calm and collected, as if she didn't realize what a shocking thing she had just done. To be able to be so calm, he was either too focused, or he already had a card up his sleeve. Su Bai's expression was a little playful, but his eyes were a little more solemn. Sheng Yiming frowned slightly, and an inexplicable sense of irritation arose in his heart. From the first to the 4th stage, he had always been the first to clear it. However, even for him, he still spent an entire incense stick's worth of time on the first stage. However, Chu Luiyue seemed to have only glanced at it once before he unlocked it. Chu Luiyue was only a level 2 mystic cultivator, so logically speaking, it was absolutely impossible for him to be this fast. Could it be that the first stage was a Xian formation that she had seen before? It seemed that this was the only reason that could explain how she could solve the first stage so quickly. Sheng Yiming suppressed the irritation in his heart and laughed somewhat self-deprecatingly. He was really too nervous. Even if Chu Luiyue had coincidentally unlocked the first stage, there were still the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stages. These 2 hours were simply not enough for her to catch up to him. Thinking of this, he felt slightly more at ease. However, not long after, a familiar sound sounded again. Bang! That was the sound of a Xian formation being unlocked. Sheng Yiming's heart trembled, and he almost subconsciously turned around. Sure enough, he saw that the 2nd star had already lit up on the stone platform in front of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue had actually successfully passed the 2nd stage. The spectators became even more restless. The first stage was simple, so it was understandable, but how could she even unlock the 2nd stage so quickly? This speed had already beaten everyone in the competition today. At this time, Cheng Han already felt that something was wrong. He could not help but look at Sun Zhongyan with a face full of suspicion. How could a mere level 2 mystic cultivator solve it so quickly? Could it be that she coincidentally saw a similar Xian formation before? Sun Zhongyan naturally understood what he meant, and his expression turned serious. Why, Brother Cheng Han, are you suspecting that I saw through the questions? Of course not. Brother Zhongyan has always been honest. Why would you do such a despicable thing? I'm just a little curious. How could Chu Luiyue be so successful? Sun Zhongyan was so angry that he laughed instead. He raised his voice and said, although the chessboard used for the Xian Master competition was provided by our Tianlu Academy, the 5 Xian formations used in the competition were jointly decided by the 3 academies. If there's a possibility that I saw through the questions, then Brother Chenghan and Brother Yunshan must be involved as well, right? Fu Yunshan immediately said, Brother Zhongyan, don't misunderstand. Brother Zhongyan, please don't misunderstand. I didn't mean that. However, I'm also a little curious. How exactly did Chu Luiyue solve it so quickly? Sun Zhongyan sneered. What else can it be? Of course, it's because she's talented. This answer was so self-righteous that Fu Yunshan and Cheng Han did not know how to reply for a while. Seeing that the two of them still wanted to argue, Sun Zhongyan shook his sleeves. If your students can't do it, can't others do it? This sentence completely shut the two of them up. 15 minutes passed very quickly. Bang! A familiar sound rang out. Everyone looked over and saw that the 3rd star was already shining brightly on the stone platform in front of Chu Luiyue. The originally restless crowd gradually quietened down. At this point, they finally realized that Chu Luiyue did not solve the Xian formation so quickly because of luck. Sun Zhongyan's words turned out to be true. Her innate talent was really rare. Chu Luiyue calmly watched the chess pieces on the chessboard change. Very quickly, the 4th Xian formation appeared. This time, the people who had all sorts of suspicions completely shut their mouths. If Chu Luiyue was not considered a genius, then no one would dare to call themselves that. Now they were only concerned about one thing: whether Chu Luiyue could solve the 4th and 5th levels in the remaining hour. First place. The smile on Su Bai's face had already disappeared. Sheng Yiming's hand, which was holding a chess piece, also began to tremble slightly. Even without looking back, they could guess what had happened. Now they could only hope that Chu Luiyue would not continue to catch up. Clack! Chu Luiyue placed a chess piece. The two of them were shocked. She actually started to solve the 4th level so quickly. Immediately after, the sound of chess pieces landing on the chessboard could be heard. Chu Luiyue's movements were smooth, and each sound was like a death sentence, echoing in the ears of Sheng Yiming and Cheng Han. If one looked carefully, fine beads of sweat had already seeped out of their foreheads. No, they had to solve the last few steps quickly. However, the more they thought about it, the harder it was to succeed. On the contrary, Chu Luiyue's movements behind them paused, and she quieted down. Sheng Yiming and Cheng Han looked at each other, and then turned back to look. Chu Luiyue was holding a chess piece, and looking at the two of them with a smile. Sorry to keep you waiting. With that, she placed a chess piece with a bang. Bang! The 4th star lit up at the same time. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 247. Everyone stared intently at Chu Luiyue and the 4 stars that lit up in front of her. She had actually solved 4 stages consecutively and reached the last stage in such a short period of time. As long as she could solve the last Xian formation successfully, she would be the first Xian master. Previously, everyone had thought that Chu Luiyue entering the competition with only 2 hours left was a joke. Now they finally understood that Chu Luiyue had come prepared. She clearly had the ability to fight for first place. Finally, someone could not sit still any longer. Brother Zhongyan, shouldn't you give us an explanation now? Cheng Han's face was cold, and he looked like he was looking for trouble. Let's not talk about the first 3 stages. The 4th stage is a level 4 Xian formation. Chu Luiyue is only a level 2 Xian master. How could she solve it? And so quickly? I request that Chu Luiyue be examined immediately. Fu Yunshan glanced at him. Although he did not say anything, he was clearly skeptical about this matter. Sun Zhongyan knew what he was thinking and immediately refused. The competition is not over yet. How can we stop? If Brother Cheng Han must be examined, then the other 2 will have to be examined too. Cheng Han sneered. I'm not the only one. Even the others here are suspicious of Chu Luiyue. How could a mere level 2 Xian master be so capable? Even if she was talented, she would not be able to do this. How do you know that she would not be able to do this? Not only was Sun Zhongyan not angry, but he also looked around and revealed a meaningful smile. Everyone may have heard that Lu Yu only entered Tian Lu Academy 2 months ago. However, there is one thing that you might not know. Lu Yu only started cultivating as a Xian master after she entered the academy. Looking at everyone's shocked expressions, he snorted. This means that Lu Yu only used 2 months to go from an ordinary person to a level 2 Xian master. Everyone was dead silent. Their eyes were filled with shock. Sun Zhongyan's words were too impactful and shocking. Impossible. Cheng Han was the first to react and immediately refuted. How is it impossible? Everyone in the Imperial City has heard about this. Our academy's elders, teachers, and even students can testify. Sun Zhongyan smiled like a sly old fox. Could it be that so many people are saying the same thing, just to help Chu Luyue cover up her lie? Cheng Han was instantly speechless, and his mind went blank. In reality, he knew that since Sun Zhongyan dared to say this in public, it must be true. At the very least, he could confirm that what he said was true. He could not help but look at Chu. There was such a huge commotion around her. But she, the person involved, seemed to be completely unaffected by it. She continued to break the profound formation with a calm expression. The uneasiness in his heart became stronger. Of the Xian masters. Of Xian. Of Xian master. If you still have any doubts after the competition, it won't be difficult to conduct an inspection. Of Cheng Han. Of course. Of Zoff the Xian master. Cheng Han did not speak for a long time. Fu Yinshan was also shocked for a long time. After thinking about it, he could only hope that Sheng Yiming could solve the last level before Chu Luyue. Wishes were beautiful, but things often went against one's wishes. Fu Yinshan quickly realized that Sheng Yiming's condition was not very good. He sat there and stared at the chessboard, but he did not move for a long time. Even Su Bai, who was beside him, had already started to solve the last level. But Sheng Yiming did not seem to have any clue. Fu Yinshan knew Sheng Yiming very well. When he saw him like this, he immediately knew that something was wrong. Sheng Yiming was good at everything except for one thing. He was too arrogant. He wanted to do his best in everything. If he lost to someone occasionally, he would enter the academy's library and study the Xian formation. He would often not come out for a day and a night. For this Qing Jiao competition, he had prepared for a long time before the competition and was determined to get first place. But now, Chu Luyue's appearance had obviously put a lot of pressure on him. Shi Wanwan had already returned to her seat, but when she saw the situation in the arena, her heart was in her mouth again. She really should not have left so early. If she had known that there was still Chu Luyue, she would have eliminated her first. But it was too late to say anything now. She did not know if Sheng Yiming could be stabilized. Click. Chu Luyue placed another piece. There was a slight fluctuation on the chessboard in front of her. Sheng Yiming and Su Bai knew very well what this fluctuation meant. Chu Luyue had found the correct solution. As long as she was given more time, she might really be able to get first place before them. Su Bai also followed up with a piece. The same fluctuation immediately appeared on his chessboard. Sheng Yiming looked at him in shock. Su Bai just smiled and ignored him. This smile immediately made Sheng Yiming realize that Su Bai had been hiding his strength all this time. Su Bai was always behind him every time. He originally thought that it was because of the difference in strength, but he did not expect that whether it was Si Ting, Su Bai, or Chu Luyue, who had appeared now, they all seemed to be stronger than him. He thought that he was the most outstanding one, and had been advancing triumphantly. In reality, he was just a joke in their eyes. If he lost this time, Sheng Yiming clenched the chess piece in his hand tightly as his body tensed up. He tried hard to see the lines on the chessboard in front of him, but he was so anxious that he could not focus at all. As for thinking, there was no need to mention it. If this continued, click. Su Bai was one step ahead. Chu Luyue followed closely behind. They placed a piece almost at the same time. Hearing their movements, Sheng Yiming's hand trembled slightly, and he actually crushed the chess piece. This small commotion immediately attracted the attention of many people. For a moment, discussions broke out. Sheng Yiming felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Chu Luyue looked up and glanced at him indifferently, as the corners of his mouth curled up. Even if someone like Sheng Yiming had some talent, he would not be able to go far on the path of a Xian master. Sure enough, Sheng Yiming took a deep breath and wanted to pick up another chess piece. However, his hand trembled so much that it took him a while to pick up the chess piece. He looked at the chessboard in frustration. In a moment of anxiousness, he actually placed the chess piece in a random position. The chessboard shook violently. Sheng Yiming was shocked. He had made a wrong move, and this game was ruined. Sensing the chaotic energy on the chessboard, an extremely dangerous thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Immediately, his hand swept across the chessboard uncontrollably. The chessboard was in chaos. The energy on the Xian array immediately exploded and rushed out in all directions. Chu Liyue's eyes sharpened as he picked up the chessboard. Digression. Why am I either sleeping early or losing sleep? I'm really drunk. I already owe 4 updates today. The remaining updates are at noon. I have to find time to make up for what I owe. Asterisk sob asterisk sob asterisk sob asterisk sob asterisk sob star. Chapter 248. Subai realized that something was wrong and quickly got up as well. But he was still a step too late. Crash. The chessboard in front of him was affected by the force of Sheng Yiming's attack and instantly flipped over. The Xian array, which had been partially cracked, became a mess in the blink of an eye. Subai's face instantly turned pale. Sheng Yiming did it on purpose. He knew that he was no match for them, but he took the opportunity to destroy their Xian array and forcefully stopped the competition. He glared fiercely at Sheng Yiming. Sheng Yiming was the closest and was affected the most. He fell directly to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, when he saw the chess pieces scattered on the ground from the corner of his eye, he felt an inexplicable sense of relief. This time, no one could continue. The sudden situation in the arena immediately attracted everyone's attention. Fu Yinshan's expression changed when he saw Sheng Yiming's reaction. What's going on? A guilty look appeared on Sheng Yiming's face. Didin, I'm sorry. It's all because of my mistake. It's easy for you to say. Now that Subai's chessboard is destroyed, what should we do? How are you going to compensate him? Cheng Han was already in a bad mood. He could not hold back his anger when he saw this situation. He saw clearly that Subai was successfully cracking the Xian array, but he was interrupted by Sheng Yiming. As a Xian master, you should know how much energy it takes to crack a Xian array. Now, all of this has been ruined by you. Their academy's last hope was on Subai. It did not matter if Sheng Yiming was useless, but he actually dared to drag Subai down with him. Sun Zhongyan frowned and said, "Since it's like this, I'm afraid the competition will be temporarily suspended." However, Cheng Han was unwilling. The competition was going well. How can it be suspended just like that? The progress of the previous 3 people was already different. If it was restarted, it would be too unfair. He originally thought that Chu Liyue was already troublesome enough, but he did not expect Sheng Yiming to be so troublesome. Sun Zhongyan was also in a bad mood. Everyone could see that Sheng Yiming was starting to fall behind. Luyu originally had hopes of competing with Subai. Now that they had to redo it, Luyu would be at a disadvantage. This lass had been competing for the past few days and had gone off to some unknown place last night. Now, she had directly rushed over to continue participating in the Mystic Master competition. Only the heavens knew how long that small body could last. If it weren't for the fact that they were the organizers of the Qing Jiao competition, he would have definitely caused a ruckus. Fu Yunshan was the most guilty, but since it had already come to this point, it would be wrong to retreat. He coughed and said, "This matter is indeed Yiming's fault. But now that things have come to this, I'm afraid we really can't continue. Why don't we let the children rest for a while, and we'll come up with a new profound formation test?" Sun Zhongyan and Cheng Han fell silent. Now that things had turned out this way, this was probably the only suitable compromise. Sun Zhongyan hesitated. "Since that's the case, let's do as Brother Yunshan says." Actually, he had some selfish motives in his heart. He was worried that Chu Liyue wouldn't be able to withstand the continuous rotation. If he could take advantage of this opportunity to rest, it might not be a bad idea. Sheng Yiming lowered his head and slowly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. However, a sense of joy and pride emerged in his heart. If he were to start over, he might not necessarily lose to those 2. Hold on. Chu Luiyue, who had been standing at the side without saying anything, suddenly spoke. She stared at Sun Zhongyan and said word by word, "Elder son, I request for the competition to continue." Everyone looked at her in unison, their gazes strange. The competition had already become like this. How could it continue? Even Sun Zhongyan was in a difficult position. He tried to persuade Lu Yu. "I understand how you feel, but the chessboard is already destroyed. There's no way to continue the competition." "My chessboard isn't destroyed yet." Chu Luiyue calmly said this sentence, but it immediately stirred up a storm in everyone's hearts. "What? Are you serious?" Sun Zhongyan exclaimed in shock. Sheng Yiming also suddenly raised his head and looked at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue opened the chessboard in her arms. The chess pieces on it didn't move at all. Even the ripples produced by the half-broken Xian formation were the same as before. Her chessboard was indeed in perfect condition. Sun Zhongyan was surprised and delighted. He never expected that Chu Luiyue could actually protect her chessboard in that situation just now. Okay. Since your chessboard isn't damaged, there's naturally no reason to stop the competition. It's just that the others." Sheng Yiming did not say anything, but Su Bai was really wronged. When the city gate caught fire, the fish in the moat would suffer. It did not seem good to let Chu Luiyue continue the competition alone. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly and asked, "Elder son, you can repair this chessboard, right?" Sun Zhongyan was taken aback. "Of course. What do you mean?" "Please help Su Bai with his chessboard. When it's repaired, I'll continue the competition with him at the same time." Sun Zhongyan's eyes lit up. Why didn't he think of that? "Su Bai, do you remember how far you've gone just now?" Su Bai nodded. "That's good. It should take half a quarter of an hour to repair it. This way, the competition would not be delayed, and it would be fair enough for everyone." With that said, he raised his hand, and Su Bai's chessboard flew toward him. A stream of light flickered on his fingertips, and the chaotic lines on the chessboard quickly became clear. Su Bai watched from the side and carefully explained where he had cracked the chessboard previously. Sun Zhongyan's movements were extremely fast, and the entire chessboard was restored at a speed visible to the naked eye. After checking it, he returned the chessboard to Su Bai. "Take a look and see if it's done properly." Su Bai took it with both hands, carefully checked it, and bowed to Sun Zhongyan with a serious expression. "Thank you, Elder Sunday." After that, he looked at Chu Luiyue and nodded. "Thank you." "You're welcome. It's just a fair competition. I don't want people to say that I won unfairly." Chu Luiyue smiled faintly and found a new seat to sit down. Su Bai did not say anything more. However, his impression of Chu Luiyue had greatly changed. Sheng Yiming was left in place. He was stunned for a while. Seeing that the two were about to start, he suddenly jumped up in panic. "Wait a minute. My chessboard hasn't recovered yet." Even if they wanted to continue the competition, they had to wait for him to pack up, right? How could it be so sudden? Chu Luiyue rested her chin on one hand and gave him a lazy look. She smiled faintly. "If I remember correctly, your Xian array collapsed just now because you cracked it wrongly, right? According to the rules, this seems to be considered elimination?" Although she did not continue, everyone could hear the meaning behind her words. As a person who had already been eliminated, how could he still have the nerve to continue standing here? Sheng Yiming's words were suddenly stuck in his throat, and his face was full of excitement. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 249. He wanted to retort, but he realized that Chu Luiyue was right. Everything that had happened just now was clearly seen by the people around him. He was indeed eliminated because of his own mistake. Chu Luiyue had pointed it out so directly. No matter how thick-skinned he was, he could not continue standing on the stage. Sheng Yiming's head was spinning. For so many years, he had always been a genius that everyone envied. When had he ever been defeated so easily and left the arena in such a humiliating manner? The strong psychological disparity almost made him unable to stand steadily. Shi Wanwan, who had been watching nervously from below, sensed that something was wrong with him and hurriedly rushed over. "Yiming, you're injured. Why don't you rest for a while?" Fu Yinshan knew that the situation could not be salvaged, so he could only shake his head and sigh. With Shi Wanwan giving him a way out, Sheng Yiming finally regained his senses and reluctantly walked down. When he passed by Chu Luiyue, he could not help but turn his head to take a look. The girl's posture was languid as she stared at the chessboard with a calm expression. It was very different from his previous nervous and embarrassed appearance. He felt even more uncomfortable as he hurriedly retracted his gaze and left with his head lowered. Chu Luiyue gently placed a piece down and did not even look at him. Sheng Yiming wanted to fish in troubled waters, and his method was quite subtle. Unfortunately, she did not want to waste her time on such a person. As for that Shi Wanwan, they were just jackals of the same tribe. After Sheng Yiming came down, the crowd only whispered for a while before focusing their attention on the two people on the stage. The competition was about to end, and no one knew who would be the first to solve it. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd. At first, Chu Luiyue did not pay much attention to the commotion, but gradually, the commotion became louder and louder, and something seemed to be wrong. She finally retracted her gaze from the Xian formation and looked up. When she looked up, she saw a familiar figure from afar. That person was dressed in white and had a black cloak draped over him. He only needed to stand there, and it seemed like he could automatically attract everyone's attention. He was a man of great talent and status. Such a description did not seem to reflect even a fraction of what he was. Many girls in the plaza looked at him with blushing cheeks, excited and nervous. On the other hand, most of the men were ashamed of themselves. Moreover, because the difference was too great, it was hard for them to even have the thought of comparing themselves. Such an immortal-like figure was truly incomparable to an ordinary person. The commotion was caused by the arrival of this man. On the field, Chu Luiyue could still clearly hear the excited whispers of many people. Who is that? Who is that? There's actually such a gentle young man in country Yaochen's capital. There's a bandit gentleman who's like to compare notes with each other. I can't believe there's really such a person. That seems to be the 7th prince of country Yaochen, who is also the frail princely. I heard that he had been recuperating at Mingyue Tianshan, and only returned to the Imperial capital recently. So it's him. I thought it would be a sickly and frail person, but I didn't expect. Although it's rumored that he's always been sick, this kind of charm is enough to make countless girls go crazy, right? Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. A monster was indeed a monster. He could easily cause such a commotion no matter where he went. However, the two of them had just parted ways in the forest outside the imperial capital. Why was he here instead of attending to his own matters? Yan Qing, who was following behind Rong Xiu, saw the commotion and blushed with shame. His master was really too much. He knew what kind of commotion his appearance would cause, yet he still made such a big fuss. Forget it. Actually, their trip this time was already considered low-key. Prince Li only brought one guard with him, so it couldn't be considered flamboyant. What was flamboyant was his master's face. When his master returned to the residence in the afternoon, there were still messy bloodstains on his body, which gave him and Umo a shock. However, his master's mood seemed to have never been better. Not only was he too lazy to pretend to be sick in the residence, but he even went out. Initially, he had some doubts, but when he saw Chu Luiyue on the field, he immediately understood. Master was clearly here for someone. However, he was even more puzzled. According to what Yin Ge said, Master came back with Miss Chu in the afternoon. Why did he come to see her again after such a short time? Yan Qing naturally didn't understand. In this world, missing someone wasn't the only illness. There was also a type called possessiveness. How could Rong Xiu stay quietly after he finally brought her back? He glanced at the girl on the stage and immediately walked forward. There seemed to be an invisible aura around him. Wherever he went, the crowd automatically retreated and made a path for him. Situ Xingchen froze the moment Rong Xiu appeared. The person that she had been thinking about day and night appeared in front of her like this. It was really unexpected, as she was too surprised and overjoyed. Even the eldest princess of Xinglua was at a loss. In actual fact, they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Compared to before, that face had lost some of his youthfulness and became even more noble and cold. Her heart beat wildly, and her cheeks seemed to be burning red. She nervously checked her surroundings and secretly regretted it. If I knew that he would come today, I wouldn't have dressed casually and left the house. However, these were all small matters that were quickly washed away by the joy of seeing him again. She took a deep breath and finally called out softly when Rongxiu walked closer. Senior Rongxiu. Rongxiu paused in his footsteps and looked sideways. Digression. What a fraudulent internet. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 250. Rongxiu stopped in his tracks and looked over. When he saw Situ Xingqian, a tinge of confusion surfaced in his clear eyes. You are. It was as if Situ Xingqian's head had been drenched in cold water. Her originally excited heart instantly turned cold. However, she still forcefully maintained the smile on her face. Senior Rongxiu, I'm Xingqian. Rongxiu narrowed his eyes as if he was trying to recall who the girl in front of him was. Yan Qing, who was behind him, reminded him softly, Your Highness, Your Highness. She's Elder Zhong Ye's niece. Upon hearing this, Rongxiu looked enlightened. So it's eldest Princess Situ. Situ Xingqian looked at his reaction. It seemed like he really didn't remember her, and her heart turned cold. His distant and unfamiliar tone made her feel even more tormented. Ever since she knew that the Qingjiao competition was held in country, Yao Chen's Imperial city, she had been imagining the scene of the two of them meeting. She had imagined this scene countless times, but she never expected it to be like this. He actually didn't recognize her at all. She took a deep breath and suppressed the disappointment in her heart. Actually, they had been separated for more than 2 years, and she looked different from before. It was normal that he didn't recognize her at first glance. After comforting herself like this in her heart, her expression gradually returned to normal. It's been a long time since we last met. Senior Rongxiu looks even more charming than before. Rongxiu coughed and smiled warmly. However, there was no smile in the corners of his eyes. They were still cold and distant. Eldest Princess Situ, you flatter me. My body is weak, and I'm just a medicine bottle. I really can't bear such praise. Situ Xingqian wanted to say something but stopped herself. She knew that he wasn't as weak and harmless as he looked on the surface. In the past, she had personally seen how outstanding he was. However, now was clearly not the time to talk about this. Light seemed to flash across her eyes as she softly said, Senior Rongxiu, you're so humble. Senior Rongxiu, you're being too polite by calling me that. Since we are from the same sect, Senior Martial Brother Rongxiu can directly call me. Eldest Princess Situ, you're wrong. Rongxiu calmly interrupted her with a smile on his lips, but his attitude was even colder. You're Elder Zhong Ye's niece, but I'm Elder Zhu Ying's disciple. Mingyue Tianshan had a total of 8 elders. They each occupied a mountain and were different from each other. Moreover, the 2 elders had been diligently cultivating in seclusion in recent years and did not have much contact with each other. It really could not be considered that they were from the same sect. Eldest Princess Situ, please take back the title of senior brother. Hearing this, the people who were originally at a loss finally understood. It turned out that these 2 were both from Mingyue Tianshan, but they didn't follow the same person. In that case, they really couldn't be considered senior brother or junior sister. Besides, everyone could tell that even though Rongxiu sounded polite, his attitude was very clear. He clearly didn't want to have anything to do with Situ Xingqian. Situ Xingqian is really being snubbed. Teacher Rongxiu. Situ Xingqian did not expect Rongxiu to cut ties with her so easily. She did not know how to reply at that moment. She had a distinguished status since she was young. No matter if it was her looks or talent, she was outstanding. Her father, mother, brother, and many others doted on her. This was especially so for the youths. When they faced her, they were either at a loss or extremely attentive. They had always treated her as the center of attention. Situ Xingqian was already used to being sought after, so she did not know what to do when Rongxiu suddenly gave her the cold shoulder. The moment she opened her mouth, she met Rongxiu's quiet, reserved, and slightly oppressive gaze. She instinctively shut her mouth, and her elegant and gentle face turned red and white. However, Rongxiu did not seem to notice her embarrassment as he turned around and walked toward Tianlu Academy's side. Yanqing glanced at Situ Xingqian and silently mourned for the eldest princess. It's not wrong to like Master. But how can Master be nice to her after offending the person in his heart? In the short period of time that Master returned to the Imperial City, he already understood everything related to that person. Naturally, he also heard about how eldest Princess Situ repeatedly made things difficult for Situ Xingqian. Master has a photographic memory. No matter if it's a book he has read or a person he has met, he definitely remembers everything clearly. What he did just now was just to make things difficult for Situ Xingqian. Situ Xingqian looked at Rong Xiu's back view as he left. He was tall and straight but also cold and distant. Situ Xingqian dazedly took 2 steps back and did not recover her senses for a long time. Rong Xiu, why are you here? Sun Zhongyan and the rest were very surprised to see Rong Xiu. A few days ago, he said that he had something to settle, so he left the academy. They did not expect him to come here the moment he returned. Sun Zhongyan worriedly asked, "How are you? How's your body?" Rong Xiu smiled and shook his head. "Elder son, don't worry. I'm fine. But I have a small matter that requires Ms. Lu Yu's help, so I specially came here." The moment he said that, not only elder son, but even the surrounding people who were listening attentively were shocked. Ms. Lu Yu, isn't he talking about Chu Luyue? What does Prince Li need Chu Luyue's help for? Elder son was a little curious, but he did not ask further and nodded. That girl is competing now. I'm afraid it'll take a while before it ends. Rong Xiu smiled lightly. It's fine. I'll just wait. After saying that, he found a seat and sat down to wait quietly. Yanqing followed and stood behind him. She did not smile and looked like an iceberg. This made many young ladies, who were interested in the weak and gentle Prince Li, calm down and wary. Prince Li seemed to have a good temper, but this cold-faced guard was not to be trifled with. Rong Xiu ignored all the gazes and quietly looked at the arena, as if he was really patiently waiting for the competition to end. This situation caused many people to start discussing secretly. How does Prince Li and Chu Luyue know each other? What does he need her help with? Who knows? Prince Li has a noble status. How can we find out about him? Could it be Prince Li and Chu Luyue? I heard that Prince Li helped her out during the Crown Prince's birthday banquet. How is that possible? That must be because His Highness Prince Li is kind-hearted. How can Chu Luyue gain Prince Li's favor? She's no longer the daughter of a noble family, but her father, Chu Ning, is already the commander of the Imperial Guards. Furthermore, she's so talented. After this Qing Jiao competition, Chu Luyue will become very popular. I don't think it's possible. Situ Xingqian naturally saw this scene as well. Her mood, which had finally recovered, was instantly affected again. She tightly gripped her sleeves and spent a lot of effort to resist the urge to go forward and ask. Others may not know, but I know. The crystal barrier that Chu Luyue used previously is Rong Xiu's. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 251. That was Rong Xiu's personal item. She had stayed at Mingyue Tianshan for so long. Even though she had only seen him use it twice, she still had a deep impression of it. Hence, she could even remember the engravings on it clearly. She had secretly asked around before, and knew that Rong Xiu valued the crystal barrier very much, and wouldn't easily show it to others. But now, such a precious item actually appeared in Chu Luyue's hands. Previously, she had other suspicions, but now that Rong Xiu had personally appeared, she could no longer continue lying to herself. She could only admit that Rong Xiu must have taken the initiative to give it to Chu Luyue. In other words, Rong Xiu willingly gave the crystal barrier to Chu Luyue. He looked as gentle as jade, but he was actually cold and arrogant. When had he ever taken a liking to anyone, let alone give such a precious item away? And to a girl? Situ Xingqian didn't dare to think about what it meant. Once she thought about it, her heart felt like it was being squeezed, and she felt terrible. Cheng Han had long realized that Situ Xingqian was a little off ever since Rong Xiu appeared. Xingqian, you've been so unsettled these past 2 days. Is it because? Situ Xingqian was shocked and immediately shook her head. It's not because of him. Master, please don't misunderstand. I haven't said why. Chung Han had seen all kinds of situations, so he naturally easily guessed his disciples' thoughts. Situ Xingchen was stumped. She knew that there was no point in denying it, so she pursed her lips and didn't say anything else. However, Chung Han knitted his brows. Xingchen, you're top-notch in all aspects. Why did you? What's so good about that Rong Xiao? Even though he's princely from country Yaochun, he looks so weak that he can't even stand a gust of wind, let alone cultivate. Such a person is at most an idle prince. How can he be worthy of Xingchen? So many young talents like her, but she didn't care about them. I didn't expect her to like such a person. Look at Rong Xiao's attitude just now. Since when did he put the stars in his eyes? Situ Xingchen shook her head and lowered her voice in a pleading tone. Master, don't say any more. Chung Han's heart ached when he saw her aggrieved and sad look. All right, Master won't say any more. You know what you're doing. They were here for the first place of the Qing Jiao competition and nothing else. Situ Xingchen nodded reluctantly and wanted to keep her thoughts to herself. But after all, she was the person he had been thinking about for so long. Now that he finally saw her, how could he really ignore her completely? Almost instinctively, she turned her gaze to Rong Xiao. He sat there quietly, and there seemed to be a subtle aura around him that separated him from the others. That was a sense of nobility that came from his bones. He clearly looked gentle and harmless, but inexplicably made people feel reverence. Lazy, calm, and collected. Sometimes, even someone as high and mighty as her would feel ashamed of her inferiority in front of him. Some people, as long as they wanted to, seemed to be born above everything. Quite a number of people were secretly sizing up Rong Xiao. However, he did not seem to notice it, or perhaps he did not even care. His pair of deep and clear eyes only looked at the arena. Situ Xingchen followed his gaze and felt sour in her heart. He's indeed looking at Chu Luiyue. Also, when he looked at me, his eyes were filled with clear gentleness. Even though it was just a flash, I still saw it. She secretly gritted her teeth, but the waves in her heart could not be calmed down for a long time. Seeing Rong Xiao appear here, Chu Luiyue found it strange at first, but after hearing what he said to elder son, she guessed it. She raised her brows slightly and decisively retracted her gaze, focusing on the chessboard again. Now it's better to solve the last Xian formation first. As she thought about it, she placed another piece. Su Bai, who was at the side, could not help but glance at her, and a complicated expression flashed across his eyes. He had already guessed that Chu Luiyue was extremely talented as a Xian master, but he did not expect it to be to this extent. He watched as Chu Luiyue continued to solve the Xian formation smoothly, and then looked at the chessboard in front of him, which had not moved for a long time. He had already guessed the final result in his heart. In reality, from the moment Chu Luiyue preserved his chessboard perfectly, he already knew that he might not be Chu Luiyue's opponent. He pinched his brows and laughed bitterly. The piece in his hand did not land for a long time. Time seemed to be exceptionally unbearable, but it also seemed to pass very quickly. Su Bai felt that he had only been in a daze for a while. When he looked up again, he was shocked to realize that there was only a little bit of time left. Seeing that Su Bai was not going to make it, Chung Han spoke first. If neither of them can solve the last Xian formation until the end of the competition, they can only be considered to be tied for second place. Brother Zhongyan, am I right? Son Zhongyan hesitated for a moment. He could clearly see that Chu Luiyue was now ahead of Su Bai, but he was still a little short of solving the Xian formation. According to the rules, if one could not solve all the levels within the specified time, then even if they had the best results, they could only be considered second place and not first place. If the two of them were tied for second place, then it would be a bit of a loss for Chu Luiyue. After thinking for a moment, he nodded in agreement. Brother Chung Han is right. Unfortunately, Chu Luiyue had come a little too late. If she had come an hour earlier, or even an hour earlier, she would definitely be able to solve the last level of the Xian formation. It's pretty good that the two of them are tied for second place. At least they did not lose. If Chu Luiyue could get this ranking, it would be a pleasant surprise. Su Bai looked up at the clock. There was not much time left, and only a small part of the chessboard in front of him had been solved. He smiled helplessly and directly put down the chess piece in his hand. Chu Luiyue, who was at the side, noticed the commotion and turned to look at him with raised brows. Su Bai actually chose to give up at this time. It seems that you and I are really going to be in the same place. Su Bai laughed self-deprecatingly. He thought that he would definitely get first place. Unfortunately, a perverted freshman like Chu Luiyue had appeared. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. Sorry, I don't like to be second place. Su Bai was stunned for a moment, and then he saw Chu Luiyue put down a chess piece. Almost at the same time, another chess piece appeared in her other hand. Immediately after, another chess piece fell. She was actually holding a chess piece with both hands. One had to know that this was not a real chess game, but a Xian formation. Every chess piece contained a different origin power. Once there was a mistake, the entire Xian formation would be affected and even collapse directly. Chu Luiyue was actually so bold. She thought that one hand was not enough, so she used two at the same time. Was she not afraid that if she was not careful and made a mistake, her efforts would be in vain? Chu Luiyue did not seem to care about everything around her at all. Her hands quickly overlapped, and the sound of chess pieces falling down almost became a string. Finally, the referee raised his voice. Time's up, bang. The last Xian formation broke with a sound. On the stone platform in front of Chu Luiyue, the fifth star suddenly lit up and shone brightly. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 252. Chu Luiyue actually managed to solve the last round at the last moment. She was the only person who managed to pass the Xian Master competition. Everyone had different reactions when they saw the 5 shining stars. Some were shocked, some were surprised, some were happy, and some were annoyed. However, they were all in disbelief at Chu Luiyue's actions. One had to know that she had only used 2 hours to solve 5 Xian arrays from the time she rushed to the competition to the end. Even those who had doubts about her before had to admit that Chu Luiyue's talent as a Xian master was indeed rare. Chu Luiyue stood up and smiled politely at Su Bai. Thank you for letting me win. Su Bai smiled bitterly. How did he let her win? I admit defeat. I accept my loss wholeheartedly. Su Bai was calm. He took a deep breath and cupped his hands. In fact, he had already lost the moment Chu Luiyue protected the chessboard. Chu Luiyue was stronger than he had imagined. Everyone looked at this scene in a daze. Sun Zhongyan was the first to react, and his heart thumped excitedly. I hereby announce that the champion of this year's Qingjiao competition is Chu Luiyue from Tianlu Academy. Everyone had heard similar words the day before. However, no one had expected that Chu Luiyue would win first place in the Xian Master competition after taking first place in the warrior competition. Damn pervert, you really don't leave anyone else a way out. Xiyang let out a long howl. He had a premonition that the gap between him and Chu Luiyue would only widen in the future. Not only him, but the others also felt the same way. This kind of person was born to make others envious, jealous, and hate, right? Mu Hongyu and the others finally heaved a sigh of relief and cheered excitedly. Up until now, Tianlu Academy had won first place in both rounds of the Qingjiao competition. Most importantly, it was Chu Luiyue who won. This time, she had completely outshone everyone in the Qingjiao competition. On the other hand, the atmosphere in the other 2 great academies was somewhat cold. When Sheng Yiming heard Sun Zhongyan's announcement, he finally couldn't take it anymore. His qi and blood surged, and his eyes rolled back as he fainted. Shi Wanwan quickly supported him. Yiming, Yiming, how are you? Fu Yinshan glanced at him. He was a little frustrated and disappointed. He just fainted because he couldn't take the blow. Just bring him back and let him rest. It was one thing to lose in public, but why did it have to come to this? It was too embarrassing. Sheng Yiming's character really needed to be changed. Oh, good. This student will bring him back now. Shi Wanwan was worried about Sheng Yiming, so she didn't notice Fu Yunshan's dissatisfaction. She waved at the people next to her, asking them to help take Sheng Yiming away. However, just as he turned around, he heard a somewhat familiar voice. Please wait. Shi Wanwan's heart skipped a beat. She stopped and looked back. Chu Luiyue crossed his arms and looked at him with a smile. But that smile made Xu Wanwan feel even more uneasy. She guiltily avoided Chu Liyue's gaze and asked uncertainly, "Are you calling me? Are you calling me?" Chu Liyue smiled and nodded. "Of course. There's something here that I need you to explain." Xu Wanwan instantly panicked. Was Chu Liyue going to expose that matter in public? No. She did it secretly, and no one noticed at all. Also, that thing couldn't leave any evidence. Even a level 5 Xian master like Sun Zhongyan definitely wouldn't be able to find anything strange. Even Si Ting had no choice but to admit defeat. Xu Wanwan calmed down a little and forced a smile. "Oh, what is it? If it's not urgent, why don't we talk about it later? Yiming is unconscious now. We have to send him back as soon as possible. It's nothing serious. He'll be fine soon." As Chu Liyue spoke, he suddenly looked at Si Ting. "Si Ting, you were having a good match just now. Why did the chessboard suddenly collapse?" Si Ting was stunned. He didn't expect Chu Liyue to be talking about this. He pursed his lips. If he didn't have any evidence, it would be useless to accuse her directly. Instead, he would drag Chu Liyue down with him. Hearing Chu Liyue call Si Ting's name, Rong Xiu's thin lips curved into a faint smile. This little thing actually wanted to stand up for someone else. Yan Qing shivered inexplicably and felt his master's aura turn cold. He immediately lowered his head and tried his best to minimize his presence. However, Chu Liyue had already picked up the chessboard that Si Ting had used during the match. "I look at this thing. It doesn't seem right." A thought suddenly flashed across Si Ting's mind. Could Chu Liyue provide evidence? He stepped forward and said in a low voice, "My chessboard collapsed because Xu Wanwan tampered with it." "Si Ting, you can't spout nonsense." Xu Wanwan was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Her voice rose an octave. "So many people are watching. How could I possibly do such a thing?" "That's right. So many people are watching, but you still dared to do it in public. Your mental fortitude is extraordinary. Even I am impressed." Chu Liyue praised her sincerely. It seemed that if she wasn't holding the chessboard in her hand, she would have applauded Xu Wanwan. Xu Wanwan was so angry that her face turned red. Seeing how confident Chu Liyue was, her originally calm heart started to sway again. Could it be that Chu Liyue really had a way? "Lu Yu, what did you find?" Sun Zhongyan asked with a frown. He also knew that Si Ting had been eliminated for no reason, so he did suspect Xu Wanwan. However, he didn't find any clues, so he didn't pursue the matter. He planned to ask Si Ting in detail after the match. He didn't expect Chu Liyue to beat him to it. "Nothing much. I just found that there seems to be something extra on the chessboard." As Chu Liyue spoke, she knocked on the chessboard with one hand. Xu Wanwan stared at it intently. There was nothing on the smooth and clean chessboard. Chu Liyue was obviously tricking her. She sneered, feeling a little more confident. "Chu Liyue, you said that there is something extra on the chessboard. I wonder what it is exactly. Why is there nothing on the chessboard?" Everyone else was confused as well. They didn't know what Chu Liyue was referring to. Chu Liyue smiled meaningfully. "You will find out soon." With that, she waved her finger. An array of silver light suddenly appeared. Then, her finger gently brushed across the chessboard. A faint mark was left on the chessboard. She moved her finger gently, as if she was drawing something. On the originally plain chessboard, a pattern gradually lit up. The light overlapped and it was clear and bright. Sun Zhongyan widened his eyes slightly. That was actually the last Xian formation on the chessboard. Chu Liyue actually restored that Xian formation again. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 253. Sun Zhongyan was not the only one. All the Xian masters present were stunned. They all knew how complicated the last Xian formation on the chessboard was. It would be difficult for them to trace it bit by bit, let alone redraw it. Furthermore, Chu Liyue was tracing it bit by bit from the end to the front. This was many times more difficult than memorizing a book backward. However, Chu Liyue seemed to remember it clearly. Every stroke was smooth and natural. Even if she deciphered the Xian formation, she shouldn't be able to remember it completely. Even the people from Tianlu Academy could not help but whisper among themselves. Has she really seen that Xian formation before? It seemed like this was the only explanation for how she could decipher the Xian formation so quickly and repair it completely. Dong Fangqing coughed. Don't you guys know that this girl has a photographic memory? During the meditation class, although Chu Luiyue kept a low profile, he had observed her a few times and realized that any Xian formation did not seem to be a problem for Chu Luiyue. As long as she wanted to, not only could she decipher it quickly, but she could also trace out the Xian formation's patterns completely. Whether she could use a high-grade Xian formation was another matter. After all, she could not release such a powerful and abundant energy at her current cultivation level. However, she knew exactly how to trace out each strand of energy. Dong Fangqing clearly remembered that once, Chu Luiyue seemed to be bored in class, so she sat in her seat and played with the chessboard repeatedly. He unintentionally glanced at it and noticed that she was tracing out the Xian formation. From then on, he knew that this girl was not simple. This was also why he hoped that Chu Luiyue would participate in this Xian master competition. Really, even Sun Zhongyan was in disbelief. He did not interact much with Chu Luiyue normally. Other than the midterm assessment, he had not seen Chu Luiyue's performance on Xian formations. Looking at it now, it really was true. But what is she trying to do? They soon found out why Chu Luiyue was doing this. After Chu Luiyue redrew the profound formation stroke by stroke, he suddenly stopped. If I'm not wrong, this is where you came to just now, right? She showed the chessboard to Si Ting. Si Ting was extremely surprised as he nodded. Not bad. Chu Luiyue's lips curved up as she looked at Shi Wanwan. When Shi Wanwan saw the chessboard restored by Chu Luiyue, her back was already drenched in cold sweat. Chu Luiyue gently waved her finger, and an indistinct line was lifted from the chessboard by her. Shi Wanwan, do you know what this is? The object in Chu Luiyue's hand was only about an inch long. Although it was transparent, it reflected some light under the sunlight, so everyone could vaguely recognize it. That is, Sun Zhongyan's expression changed. Silver Soul Hook. When they heard the three words Silver Soul Hook, many people revealed shocked expressions. It was rumored that this object was made from the rare sky snow silk. It was soft and transparent, but it was extremely tough. It was even sharper than a sword. However, this object had a huge flaw. It could only be used once. Once it was used, this Silver Soul Hook would become extremely weak and completely useless. However, from a certain perspective, this was also one of its advantages. At least, it was very suitable as a hidden weapon. It was very destructive, and it would not leave any clues. As long as one waited for a while, it would completely melt. There would be no trace of it. However, the sky snow silk was extremely precious. Ordinary people had not even seen it before, let alone used it. These chessboards were all checked before they were brought to the competition. They would definitely not be mixed with this kind of thing. Sun Zhongyan immediately realized something and looked at Shi Wanwan sternly. Shi Wanwan, how do you explain this? Shi Wanwan was completely stunned when Chu Luiyue lifted the Silver Soul Hook. Her body was cold, and her mind was buzzing. She almost could not hear what Sun Zhongyan was saying. Her face was abnormally pale, and she subconsciously denied it. I don't know. That's not mine. Chu Luiyue gently moved the Silver Soul Hook in his hand and said lazily, It's fine if you don't admit it. It doesn't matter if you don't admit it. Those who have touched the Silver Soul Hook will have a faint silver color on their hands. Do you dare to show me your hands? Shi Wanwan trembled, and her hands subconsciously curled up in her sleeves. How did she know? How did she know? I didn't. Shi Wanwan was still refuting, but everyone could tell that something was wrong with her guilty look. Fu Yunshan's expression was also ugly. A clean conscience is not afraid of a crooked shadow. Wanwan, you just need to show your hands, and you can prove your innocence. Shi Wanwan was extremely anxious. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to show her hands. Dean, please believe me. I really didn't do it. Fu Yunshan saw her reaction and understood everything. Shi Wanwan must have secretly used the Silver Soul Hook. When deciphering a Xian formation on the chessboard, every force is exquisite. One wrong move will cause the entire game to be lost. If a Silver Soul Hook were to drop now, it would be unimaginable. Chu Luiyue sighed and shook his head. Such a small thing is worth a lot of money. It's gone just like that. What a pity, Shi Wanwan. Do you still want to deny it? Shi Wanwan couldn't say a word as she collapsed to the ground. She looked at Chu Luiyue in a daze. She couldn't understand how the silver soul hook was discovered, and how Chu Luiyue found it. She only knew that her future was completely over now that this matter was exposed. Fu Yinshan was also infuriated and shouted angrily. He shouted, "Why did you do that? You've really disgraced Nanfeng Academy." To think that he had spoken up for Shi Wanwan earlier. Now, it was like a loud slap to his face. Shi Wanwan's tears fell like pearls from a broken necklace. "It's all my fault. Please punish me, Dean. But please don't implicate others." Sun Zhongyan said in a low voice. "Brother Yinshan, you have to give an explanation for this matter, right?" Fu Yinshan had never been so humiliated before. He just wanted to kill Shi Wanwan with one slap. He took a deep breath and said, "Shi Wanwan was unscrupulous. Her methods are despicable. From today onwards, she will be expelled from Nanfeng Academy. She will never be hired again." Shi Wanwan seemed to have been struck by lightning. Under the strong impact, she also fainted. Fu Yinshan didn't even want to look at her. He suppressed the anger in his heart and cupped his hands at Sun Zhongyan and Cheng Han. "I didn't take care of this matter properly. I'm sorry." Since Fu Yinshan had already made his stance clear, the others naturally couldn't say anything else. Chu Luiyue pressed her fingers lightly, and the useless silver soul hook instantly turned into powder. She put down the chessboard and walked off the stage. Si Ting was about to step forward and thank her personally when a low laugh came from the side. "Miss Luyu, now that you've helped everyone else, can you do me a favor now?" Digression. It's about 9:30 p.m. Isn't it too late to take a big step today? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 254. Si Ting looked over. It was the seventh prince, Rong Xiao. Prince Li, the Honorable Prince Li. He was also someone she liked. He stopped in his tracks and did not walk forward. Even he had to admit that Prince Li, who had not been in the capital city for a long time, was indeed very handsome. Si Yang could not help but nudge Si Ting with his elbow and mumbled, "He's just a medicine man. He's just a medicine jar. I really don't know what that damn pervert likes about his face. What's the use of a man being so good-looking?" When he first heard Chu Luiyue say that she liked Prince Li, he was very indignant. His elder brother was much better than him in every way, except for his status. Moreover, his elder brother was going to be the head of the Si family in the future. Seriously speaking, his status was not that low. He really did not know what Chu Luiyue was thinking. Si Ting glanced at him with an indifferent expression. Si Yang knew that he had said something wrong, and quickly shut his mouth. However, he did not know that Si Ting was thinking the exact opposite of him. His Highness Prince Li was known for his weak body and lack of real power. He didn't even have much talent in cultivation. Even so, she still liked him, no matter how good other people were. What could she do if she did not like them? Moreover, he felt that this prince was different from what the rumors said. He sensed a faint threat from Rong Xiao. It was definitely not the aura of someone who was bedridden all year round. Chu Luiyue did not notice the tension between the two of them, and walked over to Rong Xiao. "Rong, why are you here? What can I do for you?" Rong Xiao smiled faintly. "Just a small favor. However, I have to trouble Miss Luyu to come with me." Chu Luiyue thought to herself. They had only been separated for less than 4 hours. What was so urgent that he had to come to her for help? He was obviously doing it on purpose. However, when she saw Rong Xiao's gentle gaze, her heart softened, and she felt a faint bittersweet feeling. The corners of her mouth curled up. "Since your highness has spoken, I naturally have no reason not to help." Rong Xiao's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. If it wasn't for the fact that everyone was still around, he would have already stepped forward and carried her away. Sinhu scratched his head and looked at the two people who were about to leave. "Luyu, are you leaving already? Aren't you going to celebrate with us?" Yesterday, when Chu Luiyue won first place in the warrior competition, they wanted to celebrate for her. However, after considering that she still had a Xian Master competition today, they temporarily delayed it. Today, she won first place in the Xian Master competition again. No matter what, she had to drink properly. Didn't you say last time that we were going to Phoenix restaurant? Ouch. Sinhu held the back of his head and looked at Mu Hongyu pitifully. Why did she hit him? Mu Hongyu flashed him a toothy smile. His Highness needs Lu Yu's help. How can we delay? As for the celebration, it's the same if we wait for Lu Yu to come back. Sinhu didn't understand, but when he saw the faint murderous intent in Mu Hongyu's eyes, his desire to live was still very strong. Yes, go ahead. We will wait for you. Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Luyue and Rong Xiu with bright almond-shaped eyes. She felt that she seemed to have guessed where Lu Yu went yesterday. Chu Luyue trembled under her gaze. Then I'll be right back. With that, she left with Rong Xiu. Yan Qing followed closely behind. I heard that the thing that caught my eye at Jinbao Pavilion last time has something to do with Miss Lu Yu. Rong Xiu said casually. Realization dawned on those who vaguely heard it. So it had something to do with Jinbao Pavilion. No wonder. Who in the Imperial City didn't know that Chu Luyue and Jinbao Pavilion had a special relationship? Even Crown Prince Rongjin and Fourth Princess Rongzhen didn't get any benefits from Jinbao Pavilion. Prince Li was so cautious and directly asked Chu Luyue for help. It seemed quite wise. Situ Xingqian clenched her teeth so hard that they almost broke. She spent a lot of effort to control her emotions. Others didn't think much of it, but in her eyes, the duo's every word and action was extremely glaring. Help. It's probably just an excuse. She never knew that the cold and arrogant Rong Xiu would look at a girl with such a gaze. Gentle, loving, and doting. If this didn't prove that there was something between the two of them, Situ Xingqian felt her nose sting. She thought that even if Rong Xiu didn't have any romantic feelings for her, he would at least treat her as someone from the same sect. After all, they had stayed at Minghua Tianshan for so long. However, everything that happened today woke her up from her beautiful dream. He doesn't even remember who I am. His gaze was so cold and indifferent that it was as if he was looking at a stranger. Mentor, I'm not feeling well. I'll go back first, said Situ Xingqian softly. Cheng Han sighed. That's good too. The Celestial Physician competition is tomorrow. Go back and rest well, and prepare yourself. Situ Xingqian nodded in response, and quickly turned around to leave. Chu Luyue followed Rong Xiu out, and saw a familiar horse carriage. Rong Xiu came out in a horse carriage? Come to think of it, he's still that weak Prince Li in the eyes of the Imperial City's people. Yan Qing had already gone forward to ride the horse. Rong Xiu walked over, and personally lifted the curtain. However, Chu Luyue didn't move. His gaze slowly swept across Rong Xiu's body, especially stopping at his sleeves and the corners of his clothes. He seemed to smile. Your Highness, the pattern on your clothes is really unique. Is this the only one in the world? Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes. I'm so jealous. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 255. I personally drew this pattern and hired a professional to embroider it. It's indeed unique. Chu Luyue let out a long, oh, with a subtle expression. She had also clearly heard Rong Xiu and Situ Xingqian's conversation, and knew that there was nothing between the two of them. Situ Xingqian had a secret crush on Rong Xiu, so the pattern on her clothes was most likely secretly made by herself. However, whenever she thought of this, she would feel uncomfortable. Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly. Let's get on the horse carriage first. We'll talk on the way. Chu Luyue thought that since the competition had ended, the people inside should be coming out soon. If they saw this scene, it would probably cause unnecessary misunderstandings. She lightly snorted and got on the horse carriage. Rong Xiu followed closely behind, and only put down the curtain when they were in the horse carriage. Yan Qing waved her long whip. Giddy up. The horse started galloping and left very quickly. In the horse carriage, Chu Luyue and Rong Xiu sat opposite each other. Your Highness has a distinguished status. What can I help you with? Chu Luyue raised her brows and asked. Rong Xiu chuckled softly. Are you angry? Chu Luyue didn't admit it, but she didn't deny it either. She stared at him with her clear eyes. Other than you, I've never had any feelings for any other girl Much less. I believe you. Chu Liyue interrupted Rong Xiao. Rong Xiao was a little surprised. Chu Liyue's expression was natural and firm. Since we're already together, I naturally believe you. Seeing the girl's confident look, a smile gradually appeared in Rong Xiao's eyes. He gently held Chu Liyue's hand. It's great that you believe me, but since these things made you unhappy, I'll explain it to you. Chu Liyue was stunned. Seeing Rong Xiao's serious and gentle expression, her heart suddenly felt warm. He lowered himself and explained so much just because she was unhappy? Of course, Rong Xiao liked to see Chu Liyue jealous of him, but he liked her happy even more. Therefore, even if it was just a little bit of grievance, he would not let her suffer. He flipped his cuff over. Take a closer look. Chu Liyue looked down and saw that there were also strange and exquisite patterns embroidered on his cuffs. Does it look like tree vines? On the outside, there were peach blossoms that looked like clouds, and on the inside, there were lifelike tree vines. Of course, the tree vines were also embroidered with golden threads, making them look even more ethereal. It's just that if you don't open it and look carefully, it's really not easy to notice. I like this pattern very much. Most of my clothes have this pattern. Anyone who has seen me a few times and paid a bit of attention will be able to draw and imitate me. However, I've only learned a little. It's just the form and spirit. Rong Xiao's tone was calm, and he was too lazy to even mention Situ Xingqian's name. There was naturally nothing to mention about a person who was not worth his attention. If it weren't for the fact that she made Chu Liyue unhappy, he wouldn't have wanted to be so calculative with her. But now it was different. When Chu Liyue saw the tree vines pattern in the cuffs, the anger in her heart had already dissipated by half. Hearing Rong Xiao's explanation, she calmed down even more. This was originally not something to be angry about. After all, Situ Xingqian had her own hands and legs. No one could stop her from doing whatever she wanted. Actually, if I take a closer look, this pattern doesn't really look like it. Every stitch and thread of the cloud pattern on Rong Xiao's clothes were extremely precise. Even the faint pattern on the peach blossom petals could be vaguely seen. It was as if it was blown up by the wind and scattered into clouds. Situ Xingqian's pattern only looked a little similar, but thinking back, it didn't have any beauty. It didn't look like peach blossoms or clouds. It was a little out of place. Chu Liyue stared at his sleeves, and her fingertips subconsciously slid across his palm. After thinking for a while, she suddenly could not help but laugh. I'm the one who's petty. Rong Xiao's palm, which was scratched by her, felt itchy. He looked up slightly, and his gaze landed on her soft and fair neck. Further up were her soft, rosy lips. I can't ask for more than this, petty. No one else can have it. When Chu Liyue heard this, she glared at him angrily. Not only did it not deter him, but it also made him even more captivated. Rong Xiao's Adam's apple bobbed up and down, and he suddenly felt a little hot. Some things really can't be started. Once it's started, it can't be stopped. He forced himself to look away, and suddenly moved back a little. Chu Liyue found it strange when she saw him remove his cloak and put it aside. She could not help but tease him. Why? Isn't Prince Li weak and has a cold body all year round? Are you feeling hot now? Rong Xiao raised his brows slightly and did not say anything. His slender hands then reached for his belt. Kacha! The belt's jade buckle was undone. The smile on Chu Liyue's face froze. Rong Xiao, what is this? Rong Xiao did not seem to notice her stiffness at all. After undoing his belt and throwing it on his cloak, he slightly raised his neck to untie his collar. He was originally tall, and was more than a head taller than Chu Liyue. Now that the two of them were sitting side by side, when he raised his head, Chu Liyue could clearly see his protruding Adam's apple and his smooth jade-like chin. As princely, he was naturally wearing a brocade robe. Chu Liyue could recognize that it was made of the best flowing light brocade. At first glance, one would only think that the plain white material was ordinary, but it was exceptionally clean and soft. But if one looked carefully, one would see a faint light on it, as bright and clear as the moonlight in the dark night. His collar was very tight, and the embroidery was exquisite. The stitches were fine, and it was fastened with beads polished from a round crescent stone. But at this moment, His fingers gently moved the clasp, and it was easily undone. A straight clavicle could be faintly seen. Your Highness, you. Chu Liyue's face suddenly became hot. Rong Xiu slightly raised his head, but his phoenix eyes were slightly lowered. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of the confusion and panic on the girl's face. His thin scarlet lips slightly curved, but he did not answer. His fingers gradually moved down. 1 button. 2 buttons. The buttons on his brocade robe were undone one by one just like that. Chu Liyue could even see the snow-white inner robe. Because most of the restraints were gone, the clothes on his upper body had become loose, as if they would be taken off at any time. He stretched out his long arm, and actually took off his outer robe. Chu Liyue could even see the indistinct abdominal muscles under his inner robe when he moved. Chu Liyue was stunned. Although Rong Xiu often slept with her before, it was always at night. Moreover, the relationship between the two was ambiguous, so she did not think too much about it. But now it was broad daylight, and his clothes were half undone. What was he doing? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 256. There were only 5 people who chose the advanced formula. Now, the first person who tried to form the pill failed, leaving only 4 people. The key was that he had used up too much energy previously. Even if there was a second set of herbs beside him, he did not have the energy to try. Hence, he had no chance at all. He would be like the people who failed and were eliminated. He would not be able to obtain the final ranking. This result was very cruel, but there was nothing he could do. He had to be prepared for this when he chose the advanced formula. Cheng Lishua's face darkened. Out of the 5 people in the competition, Nanfeng Academy had 2, Taiyin Academy had 2, and Tianlu Academy only had 1. They originally had an advantage, but now they only had 1 person left, just like Tianlu Academy. The key was that they did not even know if they could succeed. Emote Song could not hide the delight in his eyes. Look, what did I say before? This sort of thing like refining pills. What one could not afford the most was this kind of impatient attitude for success. If you don't have a stable mind, you won't succeed in the end. Of course, the most important thing is talent and ability. Enough. It's not too late to say this, after your academy's people form the pill. Cheng Lishua interrupted him in annoyance. Emote Song snorted, and did not argue with him. When the results are out, we'll see who will be slapped in the face. Elder Feng Yi did not say much to the 2 of them, and only smiled as he looked at the students competing in the competition. Anyway, Tianlu Academy had 2 of the 3 first places in this year's Qingjiao competition. Even if they did not win the Celestial Physician competition, it was nothing. Chu Liyue's outstanding performance previously helped him reduce a lot of pressure. The young man did not continue trying, and left the competition with a defeated look. Situ Xingchen only glanced at him from the corner of her eye, before retracting her gaze. Now she only had 3 opponents left. Brother Zhongyan, more than half of the time has passed. It won't be long before the last round of the competition ends. It seems like Elder Yi won't be coming. Cheng Han purposely asked. Sun Zhongyan knitted his brows. On the first day, he had already told Cheng Han that Elder Yi had been in closed-door training recently. Why was he still asking? Martial Uncle has always been carefree and casual. All these years, he has only been interested in alchemy. Everyone should know this, right? Cheng Han laughed. Brother Zhongyan, please don't misunderstand. I just feel that it's a pity. Sun Zhongyan instinctively felt that he wouldn't say anything nice, so he didn't say anything. However, Cheng Han was brimming with confidence today. He had steeled his heart to hold his head high. Naturally, he would not stop here. On the one hand, I've always respected Elder Yi, but I've only seen him a few times over the years, which is a pity. On the other hand, Elder Yi's strength is formidable, and his skill in alchemy is unparalleled. But up until now, there has been no one to inherit his mantle. Isn't it an extreme pity? He narrowed his eyes as if he was trying to recall something. 10 years ago, I made an agreement with Elder Yi that if I had a disciple in the future, I would definitely let them spar with each other. But now, Sun Zhongyan sneered. Promise. It was just a joke. 10 years ago, Chung Han became a level 5 celestial physician. He thought that he was already strong enough. So he specially came to Tianlu Academy to challenge Elder Yi. At that time, Elder Yi had already been famous for a long time. Not to mention country Yao Chun. Even the surrounding empires couldn't compare to him. Chung Han came full of confidence. But in the end, he suffered a crushing defeat and left dejectedly. The so-called agreement, regarding the spar between his disciples, was just an excuse for himself back then. Now he still has the cheek to mention it. Chung Han was very pleased. Yi Zhiding was indeed formidable as a celestial physician. Even now, he knew that he was most likely not Yi Zhiding's match. However, Yi Zhiding had never accepted a disciple. Today, in country Yao Chen's imperial capital, as long as Star Union won the Qing Jiao competition and trampled on those people, from a certain perspective, he would be able to win back some ground. Who said that Uncle Master doesn't have a disciple? Sun Zhongyan interrupted Chung Han's words with a carefree smile. Chung Han was stunned. Oh, Elder Yi accepted a disciple? Why haven't I heard of this before? Could it be one of the contestants in the competition? As he spoke, he quickly scanned the competition venue. He remembered that the only contestant from Tianlu Academy who chose to go up was another celestial physician's disciple. As for the others, their standards were even worse. Up until now, he couldn't tell which one of them was particularly outstanding. When did Yi Zhiding's judgment become so bad? Sun Zhongyan remained calm. Uncle Master's disciple didn't compete today. Chung Han found it even stranger and laughed strangely. Why is that so? Could it be that Elder Yi's disciple doesn't care about the Qing Jiao competition? Or is he not even qualified to compete? To be able to sign up for the celestial physician competition, one had to be at least a second-grade celestial physician. Sun Zhongyan was so angry that he laughed. Does this Chung Han really think that he's great just because he accepted Situ Xingchen? If he knew that Uncle Master's disciple was Chu Luiyue, who won the previous 2 competitions, I really wonder what kind of expression he would have. Brother Chung Han, you don't have to worry about this. Chung Han laughed, but he felt even more smug inside. If he was really talented, why didn't he compete? It's most likely that he wasn't qualified. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but smile when he heard the two of them bicker with each other. Chung Han was too overconfident. Situ Xingchen did have some talent as a celestial physician, but it was only SOSO. She was considered the best here. But if she went to the Tianling dynasty, she wouldn't be enough. At this moment, Situ Xingchen also started to try to form the pill. Buzz buzz. The commotion caused by her forming the pill was clearly stronger than that of the previous young man. Chu Luiyue looked up slightly. The outline of a pill gradually appeared in the fire in the cauldron in front of Situ Xingchen. There was a commotion in the crowd. Situ Xingchen stared at it closely, and her heart was in her throat. As long as I can hold on, as long as I can survive this last round. The process of forming the pill exhausted a lot of energy. In just a short while her face turned a little pale. The fire in the cauldron seemed a little unstable, but it kept burning shakily. Suddenly, Chu Luiyue focused his gaze. A familiar and dangerous aura suddenly appeared. The next moment, she suddenly stood up and dashed toward the competition venue. She was very fast and reached the edge in the blink of an eye. Luyu, what are you doing? Seeing Chu Luiyue suddenly appear, everyone was shocked, but they didn't have time to stop him. Chu Luiyue flicked his wrist, and a dagger flew out. Thud! The dagger deeply stabbed into the cauldron in front of a young man. The strong impact directly flipped the cauldron over. Situ Xingchen wasn't far away. When she saw Chu Luiyue rushing over, her heart skipped a beat, and she lost control of the fire in the cauldron. Boom! She lost control, and the fire in the square cauldron started burning fiercely. The pill that had already formed the outline suddenly shattered. Situ Xingchen was dazed for a moment and finally couldn't hold it in. Chu Luiyue, what are you doing? Chu Luiyue ignored her and quickly walked toward the young man. The thing in his hand just now. Chu Luiyue. Situ Xingchen suddenly exploded and hurriedly blocked Chu Luiyue as she sternly shouted, I'm in the midst of a competition. I'm about to form the pill. But you suddenly barged in and destroyed my pill. What exactly are you planning to do? Chu Luiyue coldly glanced at her. You better not stop me now. As for the medicinal pills that were destroyed, I'll compensate you. A better reading experience came from the Love Network. Chapter 257. Haha. Earlier, Lord Chu Ning came to me for help and said that Miss Lu Yu was missing. I was very anxious and immediately sent people to look for her. There was no news for a long time, so I went to the forest outside the capital to try my luck. I didn't expect to meet Prince Li's confidant, Yin Qing, not long after I entered the forest. I heard that he was going to look for Prince Li, so I followed him, thinking that I might be able to ask Prince Li for help. I didn't expect to see Miss Lu Yu there as soon as I arrived. After asking around, I found out that Prince Li happened to meet Miss Lu Yu, who was unconscious in the forest, and saved her. He chuckled. After I came back, I immediately sent someone to inform Lord Chu Ning. Lord Chu Ning just arrived and was about to go to Jianan Square together. I didn't expect Miss Lu Yu to come back so soon. Yin Ji's words were half true. Chu Luwa did come back with Yin Qing and Yin Ge, but Rong Xiu was the one who added that he saved her. They were in a hurry, so they didn't go into detail. Yin Ge blinked his eyes. Chu Luwa immediately understood that this was a deliberate excuse to reassure Chu Ning. She didn't expose him and nodded in agreement. Anyway, in Chu Ning's eyes, Rong Xiu had already helped her several times, so one more time wouldn't make a difference. Chu Ning sighed. Speaking of which, we father and daughter owe your highness more and more favors. Rong Xiu smiled. Lord Chu Ning, you're too polite. It's just a small matter. Seeing that he was so humble, Chu Ning felt even more grateful and admired him at the same time. Prince Li could be said to be the most gentle person among all the princes of His Majesty. Unfortunately, his health wasn't very good, and he was bedridden for many years. Your Highness, are you feeling better recently? Thank you for your concern, Lord Chu Ning. I'm much better than before. That's good. Chu Ning looked at Rong Xiu's expression. It seemed that he was indeed better than before. However, I heard that even the celestial physician in country, Yao Chun, was unable to cure his body. I wonder how he is now. He suddenly thought of something and glanced at his daughter without batting an eyelid. That's right, maybe Yuer has a way. Hadn't his old injuries and her Yuan meridian been healed by herself? If he could help Prince Li recover, it would be considered as returning a favor. Thinking of this, he felt more and more that it was feasible. He planned to have a private chat with you, or when he had the opportunity. After all, they were father and daughter, and their hearts were connected. Chu Luiyue could guess most of Chu Ning's thoughts with just a glance. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If Chu Ning knew that Rong Xiu, who was standing in front of him, was not only healthy, but was also very powerful, and could be considered one of the top figures in country, Yao Chun, who knew how he would react. Chu Ning looked at Chu Luiyue worriedly. What happened yesterday? Why did you leave the academy? Who exactly? Chu Luiyue coughed. Father, this matter is rather complicated, and I haven't figured it out yet. I'll tell you in detail later. However, there's something else that I didn't have time to tell you. I won first place in the Xian Master competition today. Chu Ning was originally on tenterhooks, but when he heard the last sentence, he was shocked. What did you say? First place in the Xian Master competition. He knew that Yuer had signed up for both the Xian Master and Warrior competitions, but he was already overjoyed when she won first place in the Warrior competition yesterday. He didn't expect her to also. Really? Why would I lie to you? Chu Luiyue smiled until her eyes turned into crescents. Although it's a pity that you didn't see it personally today, the results didn't disappoint you, right? Chu Ning looked at her smiling face and found it hard to believe for a moment. First place in the Warrior competition. First place in the Xian Master competition. There were a total of 3 competitions in the Qing Jiao competition, and she won first place twice. However, Yen Ge was the first to react. He clapped his hands and said excitedly, Miss Lu Yu is indeed amazing. His master's taste was undeniable. The madam that he had chosen was 1 in a million. After you won first place in the Warrior competition yesterday, I already gave the order to book the entire Phoenix restaurant. I was just waiting for the competition to end to invite you over. I didn't expect you to enter another competition today. It seems that booking the entire restaurant for a day is far from enough. Ha ha ha. Chu Luiwei immediately shook her head. How can I accept this? I already troubled second master Yin a lot last time. This time no matter what. Sigh. Your status is different now. Over the years, those who have outstanding results in the Qing Jiao competition will be highly sought after and have a meteoric rise. Now that Miss Lu Yu won first place in 2 competitions, she'll definitely become a popular figure. If you don't agree, you're not giving Zhenbao Pavilion face. Chu Luiwei knew that he seemed to want to build a relationship with her. However, with Zhenbao Pavilion's status, it didn't seem to be necessary. However, she didn't show it and agreed with a smile. Alright, then I'll thank second master Yin first. However, why don't we postpone it until the Qing Jiao competition is over? Yin Ge laughed. Of course. The few of them chatted for a while more before Chu Ning decided to leave with Chu Luiwei. Before leaving, she didn't forget to express her gratitude to Rong Xiu again. Your Highness, you've helped me so many times. I really don't know how to thank you. If your Highness has time, why don't you come to my humble abode? Chu Ning asked tentatively. Only if Rong Xiu came would you be able to take his pulse. Rong Xiu smiled sincerely. Lord Chu Ning, I naturally have no reason to reject your kindness. When this matter is over, I'll definitely pay you a visit personally. Chu Luiwei coughed. If she went again, it might be a marriage proposal. Rong Xiu had always been a man of his words. She also curtsied and bid farewell to Rong Xiu and Yin Ge before leaving with Chu Ning. After the father and daughter disappeared, Rong Xiu turned around. Yin Ge instinctively wanted to bow, but when he remembered that there were outsiders around, he suppressed his impulse and asked with a smile. Your Highness, do you want to pick something? Rong Xiu nodded slightly. Yes, I should. Do you know what Lord Chu Ning likes? He only knew Yuer's preferences, but he didn't know much about Chu Ning. Ah! Yin Ge was stunned. Rong Xiu glanced at him indifferently. Yin Ge almost slapped himself on the head. Stupid. Master was obviously trying to woo his father-in-law. Ah! This Lord Chu Ning used to run a weapons shop, and seems to like this. There are also porcelain and other things inside. Why don't you take a look? Rong Xiu walked in. Without turning his head, he said lazily, Yin Qing, do what I told you to do immediately. Yin Qing immediately bowed and said respectfully, yes. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 258. After Situ Xingqian and Cheng Han left, she rejected a few people who wanted to accompany her, and left alone. She walked on the streets aimlessly, not knowing what she was feeling. She just felt that her mind was blank, and she didn't want to think about anything. However, the scene that happened in the square just now kept replaying in her mind, making her feel more and more uncomfortable. After thinking about it, she suddenly had an idea. Why don't I go to Princely Mansion to take a look? Ever since she came to the Imperial City, she knew that Rong Xiu had been conferred the title of Princely, and was living in Princely Mansion. Hence, she wanted to visit him. But at that time, she held on to her status, and felt that she was being too proactive, so she didn't go. But now, she didn't want to care so much. She couldn't explain why she suddenly had this idea, but she couldn't help but walk toward Princely Mansion. Even though she didn't go to Princely Mansion personally, she had thought about the location many times. She was worried that people would recognize her, so she found a secluded place and changed into a cloak to cover her figure completely. She also put on a hood, covering her entire body tightly. Even if someone walked toward her, they wouldn't recognize her if they didn't look closely. After she was done, she continued walking toward Princely Mansion. When she was a short distance away from Princely Mansion, she realized that many people seemed to have gathered there. Outside Princely Mansion's walls, there were 3 layers of people as if they were watching a show. Situ Xingqian was very surprised. Princely Mansion is where the prince lives. Why are these commoners so presumptuous and all standing here? I don't know how Princely Mansion servants are doing their jobs. They can't even do such a small thing. Situ Xingqian took 2 steps forward, wanting to see what was going on, but she quickly smelled the stench of those people's sweat, which made her feel uncomfortable and disgusted. She stood there, but her legs seemed to be fixed, and she didn't go forward. No matter what, she didn't want to push through the crowd and walk through them. It's just a small show. Thinking of this, she turned around and planned to leave. But the moment she turned around, she heard a few discussions from the crowd. I really don't know what Princely is thinking. These clothes are still fine. Why did he throw them away? Yeah, looking at the material of the clothes, all of it was extremely precious. What we're burning is shining silver. But that dress is really good. Even the cloud patterns on it are especially exquisite. What a pity. Upon hearing those words, Situ Xingqian's heart skipped a beat as she hurriedly turned around, wanting to squeeze into the crowd to take a look. However, the people in front of her were all gathered together, and she wasn't willing to use her origin power to cause too much of a commotion. She stood on tiptoe and took a few glances. She could barely see the guards of Prince Li's mansion standing in a circle, and there was a red flame dancing in the air. More than that, there was nothing to see. Helpless, she could only whisper, "Excuse me." The few men in front were a little impatient, but when they turned around, they saw a slender woman standing behind them. Even though she was wearing a cloak and a hood, her voice was gentle and pleasing to the ear. It was obvious that she was a beauty. Looking at the clothes she's wearing, it seems to be Star Luo Academy's uniform. It seemed like the students of Star Luo Academy were here to join in the fun. The few men glanced at each other, and an obscure light flashed in their eyes. Then they immediately stepped aside. Very quickly there was a path in the middle. Situ Xingqian's entire mind was on the scene, so she didn't notice the few people's expressions at all. When she finally endured the pungent smell and walked inside, she was immediately stunned by the scene in front of her. She saw a gigantic black metal bucket on the ground in the middle, and a ball of fire was burning fiercely inside. Under the flames, she could clearly see the embroidered clothes. She immediately saw the cloud pattern at the corner of the topmost piece of clothing. Under the burning fire, it quickly turned black and curled up. Her heart instantly felt as if it had been harshly clawed, and a strong sense of uneasiness surged in her heart. Look at how useless you are. What kind of status does Princely have? He just threw a few pieces of clothing. What's there to be upset about? It's fine if he gave these clothes to us too. What are you thinking about? Are you worthy of wearing Princely's clothes? Besides, that person has always been sick. Who would know about these clothes? The soft discussions around Situ Xingqian reached her ears, but she didn't react as she dazedly stared at the burnt clothes. Beside the metal bucket there were many more. Yan Qing stood beside the metal bucket and ordered the guards to throw the remaining clothes in. His cold face was expressionless as usual. His Highness said that all the clothes with this cloud pattern are to be burned. Don't leave a single one behind. If you find another one in the residence and dirty His Highness's eyes, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Yes, the guards didn't know the reason, but they did as they were told seriously. But when Situ Xingqian heard this, it was as if she was struck by lightning. Burn all the clothes with this cloud pattern? Doesn't Rong Xiu like this the most? He even drew this pattern himself. Why did he suddenly? Her entire body froze, and the blood in her body seemed to have frozen at this moment. Cloud pattern, yes, because I like him. I secretly drew the cloud pattern and embroidered it on my clothes. When I'm free, I often stare at the cloud pattern on my clothes in a daze as if I'm seeing him. I even embroidered it on the sleeves of the academy uniform I'm wearing. Rong Xiu saw it. His eyes have always been sharp. How can he not see it? Just because she had embroidered this cloud pattern, he wanted to burn all the similar clothes? What did that person say just now? He said that he's afraid of dirtying his eyes? Does he hate me so much that he won't even wear these clothes because of a cloud pattern, and wants to burn them completely? Situ Xingqian's limbs turned cold, and her heart seemed to have been harshly dug out and thrown into the snow. It was bone-chilling. She was so cold that she shivered, but hot tears silently rolled down her face. I've never been humiliated like this in so many years. At that moment, she almost felt as if her clothes were engulfed by the flames, causing her entire body to hurt from the burning. Situ Xingqian's gaze stiffly turned. There were still quite a lot of clothes piled up beside the metal bucket, and people were continuously bringing more from Princely Mansion. I don't want them all anymore. Situ Xingchen couldn't bear to watch this any longer. She turned around, rushed out of the crowd and quickly left. The crowd was crowded, and everyone was watching the show. Hence, no one cared about her small actions. Only the few men who made way for Situ Xingchen looked at each other and silently left, chasing after her. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 259. Situ Xingchen was immersed in immense humiliation and sorrow as she walked forward. Her entire body seemed to be numb, and she was in a daze. Her eyes were unfocused, and only tears kept falling. After walking for some time, she seemed to have met someone walking in front of her. She instinctively avoided him, but she realized that the person also moved with her. She avoided him again, but it was still the same. She then realized that something was amiss and looked up. There were 3 men standing in front of her. These people were wearing old clothes and looked to be in their 30s. They had stubble on their faces, and they had a strong masculine aura. They looked very uncouth. At this point, their greedy eyes were sweeping across her body without any restraint. Even though she was wearing a hood, the girl's exquisite face could still be vaguely seen. Little girl, you're alone. Where are you going? Hearing this disgusting emphasis, Situ Xingchen's face turned cold. How dare you? As Xing Luo's eldest princess, no one had ever dared to speak to her like this. When the few men heard her, they were not afraid at all. Instead, they became even more excited. Oh, you have a fiery temper? But it's okay. We like you like this. Hee hee. It seems like you're not from the Imperial city. Why don't we bring you around? As he spoke, the man in front stretched out his hand and directly pulled Situ Xingchen's arm. Situ Xingchen immediately drew out her sword and slashed at that man's hand. However, that man quickly avoided it. Situ Xingchen's sword missed, and she then realized that even though these few people looked lowly, they were also cultivators. Especially the person who attacked just now. He was definitely a stage 3 warrior. She usually studied celestial physician and was not proficient in warrior cultivation. Her current ability was barely at the level of a stage 3 warrior. Young lady, your sword is so soft. Don't take it out and make us laugh. Ha ha ha. The few men laughed. They had long known that this lady was a student from Xing Luo Academy. If she didn't have some ability, how would they dare to have any ideas about her? However, they did not expect her to be so mediocre. From the way she swung her sword, they could tell that she didn't have much combat experience. This was perfect. The 3 men looked at each other and pounced on Situ Xingchen. Situ Xingchen was shocked. These people are actually stage 3 warriors. She was definitely not a match for him alone. Thinking of this, she quickly retreated and took out something from her sleeve. You want to call for help? A sharp-eyed man saw her movements and immediately stepped forward, kicking away the thing in her hand. Situ Xingchen felt the pain and stabbed him with her sword. But how could she be a match for the 3 of them? After a few rounds of fighting, she quickly fell into a disadvantage. Hee hee, little girl, you don't have to resist. We promise that we'll make you comfortable. A few people rushed forward, and one of them directly removed Situ Xingchen's hood. Whoosh! A pure and beautiful face appeared before his eyes. The 3 men didn't expect her to be so beautiful, and were stunned for a moment. Seizing this opportunity, Situ Xingchen suddenly raised her hand. What is it? The few of them instinctively tried to block it, only to realize that it was actually black powder. I thought it was something big. Hey, little girl, you're still. The man in front of him was talking when his expression suddenly became distorted. This was because he saw his arm, which was stained with the black powder, start to silently corrode. The intense pain then came. And my hand. Ah, my face. The few people's faces and bodies were stained with the black powder. At this moment, they all fell to the ground and groaned in pain. However, that thing was very powerful. In the blink of an eye, their bodies had already corroded to the point that they didn't look human anymore. They looked very scary. Suddenly the air rippled and a black crack appeared. An elder in a black robe suddenly walked out and respectfully bowed to Situ Xingchen. Lianning greets your highness. This old subject has come late. I hope your highness the eldest princess will forgive me. His voice was hoarse and filled with vicissitudes of life. He spoke slowly and slowly, sounding very strange. Situ Xingqian's expression was cold as she walked over to pick up the item that was kicked away. Actually, the moment she took it out, she had already injected her force into it and summoned Lian Ning. Elder Lian Ning, you should have arrived long ago, right? Asked Situ Xingqian coldly as she put on her hood again. He grinned evilly. Your Highness, you're very smart. Why would you care about these things? You summoned me for something else, right? Situ Xingqian didn't hide it. That's right. There's something I need your help with. Your Highness, please tell me. Help me check Chu Luiyue. Surprise flashed across Lian Ning's face. Why are you checking on her? Situ Xingqian knitted her brows. You know her? Lian Ning chuckled. After all, she was Crown Prince Rongjin's fiancée, so I naturally know a thing or two. Displeasure flashed across Situ Xingqian's eyes. The reason why Lian Ning paid so much attention to Rongjin was that her father wanted her to marry Rongjin after Rongjin cancelled his marriage agreement. Even though she repeatedly expressed that she didn't want to, her father didn't seem to have completely given up on this idea. Hence, Lian Ning knew a lot about Rongjin. Lian Ning looked at Situ Xingqian with an ugly expression, and it was obvious that she had cried before. He knew very well that Situ Xingqian likes someone else. Now that she's like this, it must have something to do with Prince Li. But why does she suddenly want to check on Chu Luiyue? Don't worry, Your Highness. I'll do it now. He didn't ask anything else and immediately agreed. But before he left, he hesitantly looked at the rotting corpses on the floor. But Your Highness, these people. I'll take care of them myself. Okay. Then I'll take my leave first. After Lian Ning finished speaking, he stepped into the void and left silently. Situ Xingqian walked forward and stared at the incomplete corpses. Suddenly, she raised the sword in her hands and harshly stabbed it out. As if she was crazy, she first chopped off the corpses' limbs and dug out their eyeballs. She finally stopped panting when the 3 corpses completely turned into a pile of rotting flesh. She completely melted the corpses of the 3 people until they were completely gone. Only then did she spit out the words coldly. B*TCH. Damn it. Digression. Last night, I was originally sleepy, but a bolt of lightning suddenly lit up my entire room and almost blinded me. Then, there was the rumbling of thunder rolling in the clouds, and hailstones fell from the sky with a pitter-patter. Then I became energized. Can you imagine the feeling of wearing a blindfold and seeing white lightning in front of you? Woo woo woo. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 260. Chu Luiyue followed Chu Ning home. Although Chu Ning was happy to have participated in 2 consecutive martial artist and Xian master competitions, he also felt heartache. Thus, when he reached home, he didn't ask anything when he saw the faint green circles under Chu Luiyue's eyes. You've been tired for a few days. Have a good rest today. Chu Luiyue knew that Chu Ning had a lot of questions, but he forced himself to hold them back. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed. Father, many things have happened in the past few days. After the Qingjiao competition ends, I'll tell you the details of what happened. But don't worry, yesterday's incident won't happen again. As she spoke, she took out something from her heaven and earth bag and handed it to Chu Ning. Chu Ning took it and looked at it carefully. He was shocked. This is the Tianfeng compass? It was a palm-sized black compass. It was made of neither wood nor stone, and was cool to the touch. There was a silver needle on it that glowed faintly. Chu Luiyue nodded. Previously, Second Master Yin sent many gifts, including a pair of Tianfeng compasses. I kept one for myself, and wanted to give the other to you. But I didn't have the time. I'll give it to you now. Chu Ning asked hesitantly. This thing seems to be expensive, right? Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly. How was she going to tell Chu Ning that this was actually a relatively ordinary gift among Second Master Yan's gifts? She didn't dare to tell Chu Ning that there were even more expensive gifts. Otherwise, based on Chu Ning's character, he would definitely think of ways to repay them. Don't worry, Second Master Yan and I are considered friends now. It's not too much to accept this Tianfeng compass. In the future, As long as you carry this thing with you, you can follow it to find me within a certain range. This way, you'll be more at ease, right? Chu Ning nodded repeatedly. Although he didn't know how Yor became friends with Second Master Yin, it was ultimately a good thing. He had interacted with Yin Gu a few times before, and he could tell that Second Master Yin treated Yor sincerely. Most importantly, he really did want this thing. All right. Chu Ning sighed softly and carefully put away the sky compass. I'll thank Second Master Yin when I have the chance in the future. Chu Luiyue nodded and chatted with Chu Ning for a while before going back to rest. For the past few days, her mental state had been extremely tense. It was only when she lay on the bed and relaxed her mind that she could not suppress the heavy exhaustion that came over her. She soon fell into a deep sleep. On the other side, Chu Ning tossed and turned, various thoughts flashing through her mind. Only after a long time did she manage to fall asleep. That night, everyone from Tianlu Academy was in a good mood. Chu Luiyue had taken first place twice in a row, and it could be said that they were basking in glory. Tianlu Academy had not achieved such a result for many years. Naturally, they were elated. As for the people from the other two academies, their morale was low. Not only did he lose the first match, he even lost the second one. However, this was not the most important thing. To the people from Nanfeng Academy, everything that Shi Wanwan had done on the field today had already made them lose all face. As for Taiyan Academy, they had always been the most glorious in the past few years. Now that two of their first places had been snatched away by someone else, they felt extremely depressed. Yet, Chu Luiyue had won so thoroughly. They did not even have the chance to doubt him. After Cheng Han returned to the inn, he originally wanted to find Situ Xingchen to talk about the competition on the last day. However, he was shocked to find that she had not returned. After sending someone to ask around, he found out that she had not returned to the inn after leaving Jianan Square. However, she was clearly the first to leave. Cheng Han could not help but feel anxious when he did not see her for a long time. It was currently the Qing Jiao competition, and there were all sorts of people in the Imperial city. Situ Xingchen was alone outside. Who knew if she had met with any trouble? Just as he was about to send someone to look for her, he finally saw Situ Xingchen return. Cheng Han heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly went up to her. Xingchen, where did you run off to? The tears on Situ Xingchen's face had long been wiped dry, and nothing could be seen. She smiled apologetically, as gentle as ever. Mentor, I was just casually walking around the Imperial city to relax. You don't have to worry. Seeing that her expression was normal, Cheng Han thought that she had really let go of her emotions and was relieved. That's good, that's good. Tomorrow is the last day of the Qing Jiao competition, and it's also the busiest day. Anyone can appear, so it's best to be careful. Disgust flashed across Situ Xingchen's eyes when she thought of the three men, but Cheng Han did not notice it. He only nodded lightly. You're right, Mentor. Cheng Han said earnestly. Tomorrow's Celestial Physician competition is the most important part of the Qing Jiao competition. No matter what happened previously, as long as you can get first place, this trip will be worth it. Of course, you don't have to feel too much pressure. I've already asked around. There are less than 100 students participating in the Celestial Physician competition this year. Among these people, there are no more than 3 people who can compete with you. As long as you perform normally, nothing will be a problem. Situ Xingchen had heard this many times. Previously, she did not take it to heart. However, after experiencing a series of setbacks today, her mentality was very different from before. It was as if something was stuck in her chest, making her feel aggrieved and uncomfortable. Only by getting first place in the Celestial Physician competition could she truly and completely prove to Rong Xiao that she was 1,000 times more outstanding than Chu Luiyue. Mentor, don't worry. I'll definitely get first place tomorrow. Cheng Han was stunned when he heard this. As a mentor, he knew his disciple's character best. Even though Situ Xingchen wanted to get first place previously, she didn't seem to be this passionate about it. Or rather, she seemed to be dying to get first place now. Cheng Han thought for a while, and secretly guessed that it might have something to do with Rong Xiao and Chu Luiyue. But he did not ask in detail. It's a good thing that Situ Xingchen wants to get first place so much. Okay. Ponder over the things that I taught you before. Just wait until tomorrow. It was the last day of the Qingjiao competition. It was not time for the competition yet, but Jianan Square was already packed with people. The previous few days were considered lively, but compared to this day, it was still lacking. After all, compared to warriors and Xian masters, celestial physician status was the highest. In the eyes of many ordinary people, celestial physicians were superior, and it was not easy to see one. It was rare to see so many celestial physician competitions at the same time during the Qingjiao competition. In addition, the prizes would be given out on the last day, so it was considered a highlight. Naturally, many people came. However, Chu Luiyue did not sign up for the celestial physician competition, so she slept in comfortably at home. She only arrived when the celestial physician competition was ready. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 261. Even though Chu Luiyue came late, nobody found trouble with her, as she had gotten first place in the first 2 rounds. She quickly scanned her surroundings and saw that Emperor Jiawen had finally sat down on the empty chair on the east side of the competition venue. The Empress was sitting beside him. Looking to the side, she saw the various princes and princesses. After a rough glance, Chu Luiyue found most of the people present quite familiar. However, Rongxiu's seat was empty. Many students were already in their seats in the competition venue, and there was a cauldron in front of each of them. Sun Zhongyan was announcing the competition rules. There's a jade box in front of each of you. There are a total of 3 prescriptions in the jade box. These 3 prescriptions are of different grades, so you can choose the one that you're most confident in according to your abilities. As long as you produce the medicine on the prescription, you'll have completed the competition. Finally, the elders from the 3 academies will judge the prescriptions according to their grades. The first place will be decided. A deep and forceful voice reverberated throughout the huge Jianan Square. The surrounding crowd was excited and expectant, but the celestial physician was more nervous. Chu Luiyue quietly walked to her seat. At this point, most of the people's attention was on the competition venue, so she didn't attract much attention. After sitting down, she glanced at the competition venue. Situ Xingchen was indeed standing there. The surrounding crowd was softly guessing who would get first place. However, Chu Luiyue was more interested in the prescriptions in the box. I wonder what the Qingjiao competition's questions are like. Sun Zhongyan instructed a few more things before announcing the start of the competition. Everyone in the competition venue opened the boxes in front of them and looked at the 3 prescriptions. For a moment, some people were shocked, some were happy, and some were troubled. Clearly, there were good and bad people in the competition, and they all had different reactions to the competition's questions. After a short silence, a young man in the competition venue raised his hand. Nanfeng Academy's Hiyang chooses the grade of the prescription. Intermediate. The judges by the side quickly went forward and brought the corresponding herbs up. Everyone only has 2 sets of herbs. If you fail twice in a row, it'll be considered a failure. Are you clear? Hiyang nodded. Thank you for your advice, Judge. I understand. After he finished speaking, he placed his hand on the medicinal cauldron and injected his origin power. A ball of blue flames rose up. Seeing such a scene, the students at the side did not want to be outdone. They all began to choose their prescriptions and began to refine medicine. Chu Luiyue watched with great interest. He found that many people chose middle, and very few chose bottom. I don't know what's the difference between those prescriptions. Why would someone still choose lower? Isn't it obvious that he will lose? Xiyang couldn't help but murmur curiously. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly and kindly answered. That's because a celestial physician has a clear understanding of their own strength. They all knew their own standards, so they naturally knew which one to choose. To heavenly doctors, it was better to choose low than to choose medium and fail. At the very least, he would be able to rank first. If he couldn't successfully refine anything, he would be eliminated. Of course, there were also those who wanted to give it a try. Xiyang came to a sudden realization and understood. According to what you said, those who chose lower might not be the weakest. Chu Luiyue corrected him. To be precise, their ranking might not be the weakest. Siyang nodded thoughtfully. Then his eyes suddenly widened. How do you know all this? Chu Luiyue glanced at him lazily. Siyang immediately realized. He almost forgot that this pervert in front of him was also a celestial physician. It wasn't strange that he knew all this. Speaking of which, why didn't you participate in the celestial physician competition? Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. Siyang lightly slapped his own mouth. He was so stupid. Chu Luiyue had taken first place in 2 of the 3 competitions. Why would he need to participate in the last one? Besides, there were rumors in the academy that Chu Luiyue wasn't very talented in this area. She probably felt that it was a waste of time to participate. Chu Luiyue retracted his gaze and looked at the stage. Cough, cough, cough. Hearing Rong Jin cough again, Emperor Jiawen turned around to take a look, and he looked unhappy. Since you're injured, why aren't you resting in the residence? Hearing this, the Empress was elated. His Majesty seemed strict, but he was actually concerned. If he really didn't care about the Crown Prince, he would have directly sent someone to bring Rong Jin back instead of saying this. Rong Jin also noticed this, and his pale lips curved into a smile. Thank you for your concern, father. My body is fine. Mr. Zhuarong already said that I just need to rest for a while. Besides, I haven't seen you in a long time, so. Ever since he was grounded in Crown Prince Mansion, there was no news from the palace, no matter how much he requested to see him. Today was a good opportunity, so he naturally couldn't miss it. Emotions flashed across Emperor Jiawen's eyes. Even though the Crown Prince was a little narrow-minded, he did watch him grow up and had high hopes for him. How could he not have any father-son feelings? Now that he saw his weak appearance, Emperor Jiawen couldn't bear to see him like this. Rest well when you go back. What does it look like for the Crown Prince to always look so sickly? Once this was said, the surrounding people's hearts tingled. His Majesty doesn't seem to want Rong Jin to step down from his position as the Crown Prince. The Empress was even happier. Originally, she didn't agree with Rong Jin coming over. She knew better than anyone that Rong Jin came today because of Chu Luiyue. However, she didn't expect His Majesty to be so compassionate and resolve the current situation. This was really a stroke of luck. She smiled eagerly. Your Majesty, the Crown Prince has grown up and is more sensible now. I don't think he'll make you angry over such small things in the future. Emperor Jiawen grunted coldly, but didn't say anything. Rong Jin felt much more at ease, and he couldn't help but look in Tianlu Academy's direction. Chu Luiyue was sitting in the middle of the crowd. She was clearly a distance away, but he could still see her at one glance. She was bright, dazzling, and eye-catching. He had already heard about Chu Luiyue's performance in this Qing Jiao competition, and he couldn't help but admire her even more. Only such an outstanding girl was the most suitable person for him. When he came, he had secretly asked his mother about it. When he found out that she hadn't taken any action, he was a little anxious. At this point, he had another thought in his heart. After today's Qing Jiao competition ends, if mother still hasn't mentioned it, I'll report it to father myself. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 262. The Celestial Physician competition lasted for the same day as the Xian Master competition. However, to the spectators, the Celestial Physician competition was much more interesting. In the Xian Master competition, every Xian Master had to solve Xian formations on the chessboard in front of them. They could sit for several hours at a time. Most people didn't understand Xian formations, so the competition was rather boring. However, the Celestial Physician competition was different. Everyone had a cauldron in front of them. They used the cauldron to extract various medicinal herbs and fuse them together. It was quite interesting. During this process, many people could directly see the level of these competitors, and who was strong and who was weak. Therefore, most of the spectators were watching the competition with relish. However, Chu Luiyue wasn't among them. Among these students, there were only a total of 5 people who chose the advanced formula. In other words, those who had the ability to form pills were merely skilled. Moreover, these 5 people might not be able to form pills. There was no need to mention the rest. To a celestial physician, it was about the same if they couldn't form pills. Some people couldn't form pills their entire lives, so they could only be doctors forever, and would never be able to step into the realm of celestial physician. After taking a closer look at the medicinal herbs they used, Chu Luyue could already roughly guess their formulas. This made the competition even more boring. Dumpling was on her shoulder. Its head was tilting as if it was dozing off. Chu Luyue hugged it in her arms, and it curled up comfortably into a ball and fell asleep. Hey Luyu, your blood ferret is very powerful. Where did you get it? Si Young was curious at the side. Many people have gone to buy blood ferrets these few days. The supply of blood ferrets in the entire Imperial city can't meet the demand. However, I don't think any of them can compare to yours. As a third-grade demonic beast with the weakest combat strength, no one wanted blood ferrets. At most, some noble ladies from aristocratic families would buy them as pets. However, blood ferrets were rare and expensive. It wasn't worth it to buy them, so only a few people bought them. Dumpling became famous after the battle, and the blood ferrets became very popular. Chu Luyue raised his eyebrows and gently stroked Dumpling's tail. It was a furry ball and looked very cute. From the looks of it, Dumpling was no different from other blood ferrets. However, it was indeed the most special one. I picked it up in Wanling Mountain. What? Si Young was stunned. He didn't even spend any money? He had picked up such a treasure. Isn't your luck too heaven-defying? His face scrunched up. Why didn't such a good thing happen to me? Chu Luyue glanced at him coldly. It's not your turn to be besieged by magical beasts. You're pretty lucky. Si Young was speechless. Luyu? As the two of them were talking, a familiar voice suddenly came from the side. Chu Luyue turned around and saw that Zhuorong had come to their side. Teacher Zhuorong, are you looking for me? Zhuorong waved at her. Chu Luyue stood up and followed Zhuorong to the side. Zhuorong saw that no one was paying attention to them and lowered his voice. Luyu, are you really not going to participate in the celestial physician competition? Looking at Zhuorong's cautious and expectant look, Chu Luyue couldn't help but laugh. You called me here just for this? I didn't sign up, so I naturally won't participate. Zhuorong probably still had some expectations for her, because of the prescription she gave at Heaven Medicine Pavilion. It was a pity that she wasn't interested. Zhuorong saw that she was calm, and seemed to have made up her mind. He couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If you participate, he believed that Chu Luyue's talent as a celestial physician was absolutely outstanding. However, in this aspect, she had always been very low-key. He tried to persuade her, but seeing that Chu Luyue was really not interested, he could only give up. Alright, since you don't want to, others can't force you. If you need any more herbs, just go to Heaven Medicine Pavilion. Chu Luyue thanked him with a smile. But in her heart, she thought that she could get ordinary herbs from Heaven Medicine Pavilion. But for some special herbs, it would be more convenient to go to Treasure Pavilion. After bidding farewell to Zhuorong, she turned around and was about to return to her seat when she suddenly stopped. Just now, she seemed to have felt an extremely dangerous gaze sweep past her. Chu Luyue immediately became alert. Her eyes quickly scanned the surroundings. However, that biting cold and dangerous aura quickly disappeared. She looked for a while and didn't sense anything unusual. Luyu, what's wrong with you? Zhuorong couldn't help but ask when he saw that Chu Luyue suddenly stopped when she turned to leave. Could it be that this girl changed her mind at the last minute? Chu Luyue turned around and smiled at him. Nothing. After she finished speaking, she returned to her seat. From the beginning to the end, her expression seemed normal. This small episode didn't attract anyone's attention. However, after sitting down, Chu Luyue's body still tensed up, and her gaze gradually turned cold. Her senses couldn't be wrong. That terrifying murderous intent was indeed directed at her. According to her estimation, the other party must be very strong. That kind of suffocating suppression was at least a stage 6 warrior. But who exactly was it? Even though she had offended many people during this period, one had to know that there had never been a stage 6 warrior in the entire country Yao Chun. Chu Luiyue slowly stroked Dumpling, and a thought suddenly flashed across her mind. Wait! She forgot that she still had an enemy hiding in the dark. The person who poisoned Liao Zhongshu. Chu Luiyue didn't know when she had offended such a mysterious and powerful person. The other party seemed to have set up a trap in the dark, and was just waiting for her to step on the wrong foot. Then they would completely kill her. Could it be that the person behind this Qing Jiao competition is also here? Thinking of this, she couldn't help but turn her gaze and look at Chu Xianmen. Chu Xianmen didn't sit with Rongjin. Instead, she stayed at Tianlu Academy's side. Even though she had already married into Crown Prince Mansion, and had been serving Rongjin by his side. However, as a concubine, she didn't have the right to sit beside Rongjin in such an occasion. Chu Xianmen seemed to have noticed something and looked up. The two's gazes met. Chu Xianmen couldn't help but shiver. For some reason, she felt that Chu Luiyue's eyes seemed to see through everything. She almost touched her neck unknowingly. The wound left by the dagger had already formed a scab, and it was very rough to the touch. It constantly reminded her how scary Chu Luiyue was. She turned her gaze away in a panic. Chu Luiyue squinted her eyes slightly. Seeing Chu Xianmen's reaction, it does seem like something is wrong. She pretended to look around unintentionally, but she still didn't discover anything. At this point, a dull sound was heard from the arena. Poof! Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 263. Chu Luiyue looked over. A young man stood there with a pale face. The fire in the cauldron in front of him had already been extinguished, and there was only black ash left inside. The voice from earlier had come from inside the cave. It turned out that the refinement failed. Judging from his clothes, he's from Taiyan Academy. The judges at the side reminded him. You still have one last chance. The young man then returned to his senses and nodded mechanically. He hurriedly cleaned the cauldron, and started to pick up the second set of herbs at the side for his second attempt. However, perhaps because he was very nervous after his first failure, his hands kept trembling. The judges secretly shook their heads. Some of the people watching from below the stage also sighed. They had seen many such situations before. The competition was already intense, and the failure of the first refinement was a huge blow. Many students who weren't mentally strong would quickly lose their confidence after their first failure and become dispirited, resulting in consecutive failures the second time. As expected, not long after, the young man actually took the wrong order of the herbs. When he realized this, he started to frantically take out the herbs again. This action caused the fire in the cauldron to lose control and extinguish once again. The set of herbs that couldn't be refined was wasted just like that. The judges looked as if they had expected this and shook their heads. Number 37 eliminated. Upon hearing this, the young man trembled, and deep defeat surfaced in his eyes. He then weakly walked down the stage. He's the first person to be eliminated in this year's Celestial Physician competition, right? I didn't expect his second performance to be worse than his first. At least he refined the herbs previously, but there was a problem when he was merging them. He's probably too nervous. Not to mention them, even I'm worried. He's still not talented or capable. Look at Situ Xingchen. She's been very calm since she went on stage. Even though it's her first time participating in the Qing Jiao competition, her refining skills seem to be smoother than the rest. After all, she's country Xing Luo's beloved eldest princess. She really lives up to her reputation. Situ Xingchen was determined to get first place this time, so she didn't hesitate to choose the most difficult prescription from the start. Because of this, the medicinal herbs placed beside her were several times more than the others. While the other people who had chosen the middle or lower prescription had already begun to fuse, she was still processing the herbs in an orderly manner. Gradually, more and more people began to be eliminated. Situ Xingchen listened to those voices and remained unmoved. She would only occasionally look up to see the progress of those who had chosen the advanced prescription like her. She didn't care about the others at all. As time passed, more and more people were eliminated. By noon, there was only half left. Chu Luiyue had been waiting for that person to appear. But ever since that one glance, The other party had not moved at all. She felt some regret in her heart, but she did not give up. She was still waiting vigilantly. Since the other party had come here, they must be plotting something. Now that there are so many people in the Qing Jiao competition, it won't be easy to make a move. Emperor Jiawen looked at the competition and smiled. Situ Xingqian is indeed outstanding. When I saw her a few years ago, she was still a young lady. Now she's already so beautiful. No matter if it was her looks or talent, she was extremely outstanding. The empress saw that Emperor Jiawen really liked Situ Xingqian, so she smiled and supported him. Your Majesty, you're right. A girl like Situ Xingqian is indeed rare. I heard that she's not engaged yet? Emperor Jiawen laughed. That's right. Her father dotes on her a lot and can't bear for her to get married. He keeps saying that he wants her to stay for a few more years. But, however, when the two of them were exchanging letters previously, Situ Xingqian's father, country Xing Luo's current Emperor Jingkong, Situ Yu, had taken the initiative to mention a marriage alliance. As for the marriage alliance's target, it was the Crown Prince Rong Jin. Not many people knew about this, and Situ Yu seemed to have casually mentioned it. However, as the emperor, how could he joke about such things? Emperor Jiawen knew very well that Situ Yu was testing his attitude. He was naturally very satisfied with Situ Xingqian, but he didn't know why Situ Yu would suggest this. In country Xing Luo, Situ Xingqian could also choose a prince consort that she was satisfied with. So why did she insist on a marriage alliance? Furthermore, she chose Rong Jin. The empress naturally knew what he was thinking about. Back then, His Majesty had unintentionally mentioned it to her, but she didn't take it to heart. Now that she thought about it, it was an excellent choice. At least it was better than Chu Luiyue. If His Majesty wanted to bestow a marriage, Rong Jin wouldn't be able to resist. Needless to say, the other party was country Xing Luo's eldest princess. She seemed to be joking. I wonder who will be so lucky to marry this eldest princess in the future. Emperor Jiawen was in deep thought. Rong Jin secretly knitted his brows. Actually, he had heard some news from his mother before, and he was tempted back then. However, that was before he angered his father. During this period of time, he had met with many setbacks, and he originally thought that there was no hope. However, it seemed like his father didn't completely reject him. However, he had already decided on Chu Luiyue as the crown princess in his heart. If it were him in the past, he would be very happy to have a marriage alliance with Situ Xingqian. Who wouldn't want to marry such a perfect crown princess? However, he only had Chu Luiyue in his heart now. No matter what, he didn't want to change it to anyone else. He coughed and seemingly unintentionally said to Rong Qi, who was sitting beside him, I heard that Chu Luiyue took first place in the competition 2 days ago. Rong Qi was dazed. Doesn't my brother hate Chu Luiyue the most? Why did he bring it up now? Rong Qi's mind turned, and he suddenly remembered that there were rumors these 2 days that the crown prince's attitude toward Chu Luiyue had changed. He even invited her in public. However, Chu Luiyue rejected him. According to my understanding of him, he shouldn't have any contact with Chu Luiyue anymore. Rong Qi nodded. I think so. It's just that I didn't come a few days ago, so I don't know the exact situation. However, brother, why did you suddenly mention her? Haven't you always? Rong Jin smiled. She saved me previously, but I haven't had the chance to thank her in person. Rong Qi felt increasingly strange. He felt that Rong Jin's expression was a little strange when he talked about Chu Luiyue. Upon hearing this, Emperor Jiawen turned and glanced at him. Rong Jin is actually speaking up for Chu Luiyue? It seems like the things that happened during this period have changed him quite a bit. Lu Yu is indeed a good child. Rong Jin nodded and laughed bitterly. Father, you're right. I didn't have the foresight in the past, so I missed it. Now digression cough. I owe you another chapter. 2 new chapters at 4 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 264. It's good that you have such thoughts. It won't be too late to thank her when you're better. The Empress suddenly interrupted Rong Jin. Even though she was smiling, her gaze toward Rong Jin was filled with warning. Rong Jin's lips moved, but he swallowed his remaining words. Now that his father's opinion of him had changed, it might be more appropriate to speak when the situation was better. Emperor Jiawen looked at Rong Jin with deep meaning. Based on his understanding of his son, he wouldn't admit that he was wrong in front of everyone, even if he was saved by Chu Luiyue. His change in attitude was a little strange. Emperor Jiawen didn't know what he was thinking. I heard that Chu Xianmin has been taking care of you these few days? Rong Jin nodded nonchalantly. Emperor Jiawen smiled. That child is not bad, and she's quite sincere to you. After a while, you can raise her status. Your Majesty, the Gu family and the Chu family are still in a stalemate. The Empress reminded him softly. Emperor Jiawen paused, and then remembered that Chu Xianmin's mother, Lu Yao, had done a lot of good deeds. Not only did she steal the Chu family's money, but she also secretly instigated the Gu family's madam to cause trouble at Tianlu Academy. If it weren't for the Lu family and Crown Prince Mansion, Lu Yao might not have been able to leave the Gu family alive. Even so, she was harshly taught a lesson. With such a family and parents, Chu Xianmin's reputation wasn't any better. She really wasn't suitable for raising her status. Emperor Jiawen swallowed the rest of his words. Just treat her well. Yes, Your Majesty. Rong Jin agreed verbally, but he didn't think so in his heart. Father could say such things so easily, because he didn't see Chu Xianmin's face. He did want to treat Chu Xianmin better, but every time he saw her, he would unknowingly remember the horrifying and ugly face he saw that night. No matter what, he couldn't develop any feelings for her. Besides, the Chu family was on the decline now, and Lu Yao and Chu Yan's situation wasn't optimistic. He was already kind enough for not despising Chu Xianmin's family, for bringing so much trouble to him. How could he treat them well? Ding! A crisp sound was suddenly heard in the competition venue. That was the sound of someone successfully refining a pill. Everyone hurriedly looked over, and found that this person was He Yang, who was the first to choose the prescription. His forehead was full of sweat, and his face was red from nervousness and excitement. At this moment, he was carefully placing the medicinal soup that he had refined in his medicinal cauldron into a jade box that he had prepared beforehand. A strong medicinal fragrance wafted out. Looks like his refinement was very successful. The medicinal effect of this decoction is probably not low. I heard that he had already broken through to become a level 3 doctor last year. He just needs to take one more step, and he will be a real celestial physician. As long as you can't produce pills, you can't be considered a celestial physician. He wanted to know if he could cross this threshold. You have to know that some people will remain as a level 3 doctor for their entire lives. Easy for you to say. There were less than 5 celestial physicians in country Yaochun. Being able to become a level 3 doctor was already considered pretty good. How could they expect everyone to be a celestial physician? In my opinion, there are less than 3 people in this competition who have the ability to form a pill. It's even harder to say who will succeed in the end. The young man carefully presented the jade box to the 3 celestial physicians sitting beside him. These 3 physicians came from 3 different academies, and they judged together to ensure fairness. The one in the middle was Elder Feng Yi from Tianlu Academy. On his left and right were Elder Cheng Lixue from Nanfeng Academy and Elder Emotsong from Taiyin Academy. Elder Feng Yi opened the jade box, glanced at it, and said, Level 3 middle grade. The smile on He Yang's face froze for a moment. He was a level 3 doctor, so the medicinal soup that he refined was naturally level 3 as well. However, there were differences in standards, even among doctors of the same level. He originally thought that he could be considered a level 3 superior grade. Therefore, Elder Feng Yi's judgment had more or less disappointed him. He took a deep breath and looked at the other 2 elders. However, after the other 2 looked at it, they gave the same judgment. Seeing that the arbitration elder was about to record the results, He Yang hurriedly said, Elders, please take a look again. Is this student's medicine really only a middle grade medicine? Elder Feng Yi smiled and shook his head. Are you doubting the 3 of us? He Yang immediately lowered his head. I wouldn't dare. It's just that. However, if it was really middle grade, then he definitely wouldn't be able to get a good ranking. Actually, you know very well what the grade of this medicine of yours is. Although you refined it according to the prescription, you didn't handle the herbs cleanly enough and left some impurities, which will affect the medicine's efficacy. Don't tell me you didn't see the mottled colors on it? He Yang's face flushed red, and he didn't dare to argue anymore. He hurriedly said, "Thank you for your guidance, elders." After saying that, he quickly retreated. Elder Feng Yi and the other two elders looked at each other and smiled. They were heavenly doctors who had gone through hundreds of battles. They only needed to take a look at the medicine and smell it to be able to accurately guess the quality of the medicine. How could they make a wrong judgment? I'm afraid we still have to wait for a while before we can get to level 3 superior grade. Elder Chung Lishua stroked his beard. Elder Emotsong snorted. Haha, if there's someone here who can refine a pill, this old man will be more than happy to wait. Elder Feng Yi and Elder Chung Lishua exchanged glances. Who couldn't tell that he was secretly praising Situ Xingchen? From his tone, it was as if he was certain that Situ Xingchen could produce a pill. Buzz! At this moment, there was a sudden movement in the competition hall. The crowd hurriedly looked over and saw that the movement came from the cauldron in front of a young man. He's about to produce a pill? Exclaimed Elder Chung Lishua in surprise. Like him, that young man was from Nanfeng Academy, so he was naturally happy to see him produce a pill. Elder Feng Yi stared at him for a while and didn't say anything. However, Elder Emotsong poured cold water on him. He's producing a pill so quickly? Don't be too anxious, right? What if something goes wrong? Chung Lishua furrowed his brows in frustration. Emotsong, I've never said anything bad about Taiyin Academy students. Emotsong shrugged. Can't you tell? The fire in his cauldron can't hold on for much longer. Chung Lishua was shocked. He looked over and realized that it was indeed so. That young man's face rapidly turned pale, and his body trembled, as if he had reached his limit. The smile on his face gradually disappeared. Indeed, not long after, the fire in the cauldron was completely extinguished. Even the medicinal ingredients that were in the process of being fused into a pill had all turned into ashes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 265. With that, Chu Liyue quickly walked past Situ Xingchen and rushed in front of the young man. Hand it over. The young man was startled by Chu Liyue's attitude and took a step back. What are you doing? I don't know what you're talking about. He pointed at the cauldron that had already toppled over and complained. You destroyed my elixir. This young man was another student of Taiyin Academy who had chosen to form his elixir, Yang Jianqing. Not long after Situ Xingchen had started forming his elixir, he had also reached this step. When Chu Liyue's dagger had flown over, the outline of the elixir could already be vaguely seen inside the cauldron. Now that it had been destroyed, Yang Jianqing looked at Chu Liyue furiously after he came to his senses. Chu Liyue narrowed his eyes. You know very well what I want. Are you going to take it yourself? Or do you want me to do it for you? Yang Jianqing was intimidated by the cold pressure coming from her body and couldn't help but tremble from the bottom of his heart. Chu Liyue looked like a teenage girl, but she had an aura about her that no one dared to defy. Being stared at by those obsidian eyes, Yang Jianqing couldn't help but feel a little guilty. He averted his gaze, and his voice was also a little airy. I don't understand. Chu Liyue, we were having a good competition, but you just had to barge in at this time. I'd like to ask you, what right do you have to do this? Chu Liyue's expression turned cold, and she was about to step forward. At this moment, the surrounding people finally reacted. Cheng Han was the first to speak harshly. Chu Liyue, how dare you? What do you think this place is for you to act like this? Chu Liyue sneered and turned around. Dean Cheng Han, if it wasn't for the fact that someone from your academy made a mistake, I wouldn't have come here so rashly. What did you say? Cheng Han frowned, feeling even more furious. Are you implying that there's something wrong with Yang Jianqing? Chu Liyue shrugged. No, I'm explicitly saying that. Cheng Han choked and trembled in anger. Who did Chu Liyue think he was? How dare he question their extreme Yin Academy in public? Not only did he destroy their student's pill, he even dared to slander them. He knew that he was no match for Chu Luiyue in terms of eloquence. Besides, with his status, it would be embarrassing for him to argue with Chu Luiyue in public. He looked at Sun Zhongyan and shouted in a low voice. Sun Zhongyan, this is the kind of student your academy has nurtured. Truly audacious to the extreme, doing as he pleased. Does she really think she can be so arrogant just because she got first place twice? Sun Zhongyan was also shocked by Chu Luiyue's actions. However, he had always had a good impression of Chu Luiyue. So even though her actions were too sudden, he still felt that there must be a reason for it. Luiyue has always known her limits. She must have a reason for doing this. Once she explains herself, Brother Chung Han, it won't be too late to pursue this matter. Isn't that right? Chung Han gritted his teeth. Sun Zhongyan was very protective of Chu Luiyue. Sun Zhongyan, Chu Luiyue has ruined the last match of the youth's gathering. You've caused such a disaster, and you're still going to pretend that nothing has happened? Sun Zhongyan glanced at the situation on the field and coughed, reminding him, Brother Chung Han, isn't the competition still going on? Luiyue went up and only knocked over Yang Jianqing's medicine cauldron, preventing him from forming the pill. The others are still fine. Oh right, there's also Situ Xingchen. Chung Han was stunned. He turned his head to take a closer look, and found that it was indeed so. Other than Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingchen, the others really did not seem to have been affected. On one hand, the field was very big. In order to make it easier to refine pills, each student occupied a large area on their own. The distance between each student was not very small. On the other hand, Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingchen were both students of Super Yin Academy. The two of them were next to each other. So although Situ Xingchen was affected more, the others in the distance were not. His lips moved, feeling embarrassed and annoyed. If that's the case, it proves that Luiyue did it on purpose. Otherwise, why would she destroy the students of our academy when there are so many people on the field? And the two who are in the process of forming their pills. Sun Zhongyan smiled. Brother Chung Han, Luiyue was obviously targeting Yang Jianqing. Everyone can see this, and Luiyue herself admits it. As for Situ Xingchen, honestly speaking, the destruction of her pills is mostly due to her own fault. Right? Southwind Academy's Qi Yunfeng is also on the verge of forming his pill, and he's also next to Yang Jianqing. The distance between the two of them is the same as the distance between Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingchen. Isn't he still doing fine? Fu Yunshan stroked his beard, somewhat pleased with himself. That child Yunfeng has always been calm and steady. When he saw Situ Xingchen and Yang Jianqing form their pills one after another, he was still a little worried. But who would have thought that Chu Luiyue would appear out of nowhere? He'd actually finished off both of them at the same time. Now that the two academies were at loggerheads, he would naturally watch the show from the sidelines, and even add fuel to the fire. Just now, I saw that the flames in Situ Xingchen's medicine cauldron seemed a little unstable. It seemed to be in a similar situation to that of the student from our academy. Lixue, what do you think? Cheng Lixue was just regretting that his academy had lost a student who could compete for a place in the rankings. But when he heard Fu Yunshan's words, he immediately understood. That's right. The process of forming a pill is very energy-consuming. If one's strength is insufficient, the flames in the medicine cauldron will be extinguished at any time, resulting in failure. In my opinion, Situ Xingchen's pill might not have been. Cheng Lixue, don't speak nonsense. Xingchen's pill was clearly about to form just now. If not for Chu Luiyue's interference, how could it have failed? Chung Han immediately retorted, his face ashen. He was obviously doubting Situ Xingchen's strength. Cheng Lixue chuckled. President Chung Han, as a heavenly doctor, shouldn't you know very well whether I'm speaking nonsense or not? The pill is about to form, but it hasn't formed yet. Until the very last moment, who knows what the result will be? If only they could take the opportunity to kick Situ Xingchen and Yang Jianqing out. How could Chung Han not know what the Southwind Academy was planning? He didn't want to waste any more time with them. Instead, looking at Sun Zhongyan again. No matter what, Chu Luiyue must give us an explanation for today's matter. Otherwise, we won't have to participate in this youngsters' gathering. The moment these words were said, Everyone fell silent for a moment. They hadn't expected Chung Han to use this as a threat. Thinking about it carefully, it was understandable. Martial artists and mystic masters hadn't taken first place, so they only had this last bit of hope left. If Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingchen didn't get a place because of this, then they would really have suffered a crushing defeat. Sun Zhongyan looked hesitantly at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue gave him a reassuring look. President Chung Han, since you want to explain, then please listen carefully. Chu Luiyue raised his hand and pointed at Yang Jianqing, his gaze cold. Every word fell like thunder. He has the blood-red goo on him. Mobile users, please browse to read. A better reading experience came from LoveNet. Chapter 266. Then, Chu Luiyue quickly walked past Situ Xingchen and rushed to the young man. Hand it over. The young man was shocked by Chu Luiyue's actions and took a step back. What are you trying to do? I don't know what you're talking about. He pointed at the cauldron that had already toppled over and complained. You destroyed my pill. This young man was the other student from Taiyan Academy, who chose to form the pill, Yang Jianqing. Not long after Situ Xingchen started forming the pill, he also reached this stage. When Chu Luiyue's dagger flew over, the pill's outline could already be seen in the cauldron. Now that it was suddenly destroyed, Yang Jianqing snapped out of his daze and glared at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. You know very well what I want. Do you want to take it yourself, or do you want me to do it? Yang Jianqing was intimidated by her cold aura, and his heart couldn't help but tremble. Chu Luiyue looked like a teenage girl, but she vaguely had an aura that made people dare not defy her. Yang Jianqing couldn't help but feel guilty when he was stared at by those obsidian-like eyes. He looked away, and his voice drifted. I don't understand. Chu Luiyue, we were having a good competition, but you just had to barge in at this time. I want to ask you, what right do you have? Chu Luiyue's expression turned cold, and she was about to step forward. At this point, the surrounding crowd finally reacted. Chung Han was the first to speak harshly. Chu Luiyue, how dare you? Where do you think this is? How dare you do this? Chu Luiyue sneered and turned around. Director Chung Han, if it weren't for your academy's mistake, I wouldn't have come up so rashly. What did you say? Chung Han furrowed his brows and became even angrier. Are you hinting that there's something wrong with Yang Jianqing? Chu Luiyue shrugged. No, I'm making it clear. Chung Han choked and trembled with anger. Who did Chu Luiyue think he was? How dare he question Taiyan Academy in public? Not only did he destroy their students' pills, but he also slandered them. He knew that his eloquence was no match for Chu Luiyue's. Besides, with his status, arguing with Chu Luiyue in public would be a disgrace. He simply looked at Sun Zhongyan and shouted in a deep voice, Sun Zhongyan, these are the good students that your academy has taught. He was truly audacious, doing whatever he wanted. Do you think you can be so arrogant just because you got 2 first places? Sun Zhongyan was also shocked by Chu Luiyue's actions. However, he had always had a good impression of Chu Luiyue. So even if her actions were too sudden, he still felt that there must be a reason for it. Luiyue always knows her limits. She must have her reasons for doing this. Brother Chung Han, it won't be too late for you to pursue this matter after she explains it clearly. Wasn't that right? Chung Han gritted his teeth. Sun Zhongyan is extraordinarily protective of Chu Luiyue. Sun Zhongyan, the last round of the Qingjiao competition has been ruined by Chu Luiyue. After causing such a disaster, can you still pretend that nothing happened? Sun Zhongyan glanced at the situation, coughed, and reminded Chung Han. Brother Chung Han, isn't the competition still ongoing? Luiyue went up and only knocked over Yang Jianqing's cauldron, stopping him from producing pills. The others are still fine. Oh right, and Situ Xingchen. Chung Han was stunned. He turned his head to take a closer look, and realized that it was indeed the case. Other than Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingchen, the others really didn't seem to be affected. On one hand, the venue was very big. To make it convenient for refining pills, every student occupied a large area by themselves, and the distance between them was not small. On the other hand, Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingchen were both Taiyan Academy students, and they were right next to each other. Hence, even though Situ Xingchen was greatly affected, the others who were further away were spared. Cheng Han's lips moved, and he felt embarrassed and angry. In that case, this proves that Chu Luiyue did it on purpose. If not, why didn't she interrupt the other people in the competition? Why did she ruin our academy students? Moreover, the two of them were producing pills. Sun Zhongyan smiled. Brother Cheng Han, Lu Yu clearly went for Yang Jianqing. Everyone can tell, and even Lu Yu admitted it himself. As for Situ Xingchen, honestly speaking, it's more of her own fault that her pills were destroyed, right? Nanfeng Academy's Qi Yinfeng was also about to produce pills, and he was beside Yang Jianqing. The distance between the two of them was the same as the distance between Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingchen. Isn't he still fine? Fu Yunshan stroked his beard proudly. Yinfeng has always been a calm and steady child. Previously, when he saw Situ Xingchen and Yang Jianqing producing pills one after another, he was still worried. However, he didn't expect Chu Luiyue to appear out of nowhere. He actually defeated the two of them together. Now that the two families were fighting, he naturally wanted to watch the show and even add fuel to the fire. Just now, I saw that the fire in Situ Xingchen's cauldron was a little unstable. It seemed to be similar to the situation of our academy student. Lixue, what do you think? Cheng Lixue was feeling sad that his academy had lost a student who could compete for a ranking. When he heard Fu Yunshan's words, he immediately understood. That's right. The process of producing pills is very tiring. If one's abilities can't support it, the fire in the cauldron will extinguish at any time, resulting in failure. From what I see, Situ Xingchen's pills might not have been refined at all. Cheng Lixue, don't spout nonsense. Xingchen's pills were clearly about to be produced. If Chu Luiyue didn't interfere, why would it fail? Cheng Han immediately retorted, his face green. He's clearly doubting Situ Xingchen's abilities. Cheng Lixue chuckled. Director Cheng Han, as a celestial physician, shouldn't you know whether I'm spouting nonsense or not? The pills were about to be produced, but they weren't. Who knows what the outcome will be until the last moment. If only we can take the chance to kick Situ Xingchen and Yang Jianqing out. How could Cheng Han not know what Nanfeng Academy was up to? Hence, he didn't argue with them, and looked at Sun Zhongyan again. No matter what, Chu Luiyue has to give an explanation for today's incident. If not, we won't participate in the Qing Jiao competition. The moment he said that, the crowd fell silent. They didn't expect Cheng Han to use this to threaten them. Thinking about it carefully, it was understandable. They didn't get first place in the warrior and Xian master categories, so they were only left with this last bit of hope. If Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingchen didn't get a ranking because of this, they would really fail miserably. Sun Zhongyan looked at Chu Luiyue hesitantly. Chu Luiyue gave him a reassuring look. Dean Cheng Han, since you want to explain, then please listen carefully. Chu Luiyue raised his finger and pointed at Yang Jianqing. His gaze was cold, and his words were like thunder. He has the red blood goo on him. Chapter 267. Once she said that, the entire square fell silent. Most of the people didn't know what red blood goo was, so they were all confused. However, those who had some understanding of the red blood goo were all filled with shock, so shocked that they were speechless. Yang Jianqing's pupils constricted. I hid it so well. How did Chu Luiyue see through it? Cheng Han was also shocked when he heard that. He immediately said, impossible. Red blood goo is such an evil thing. How can Yang Jianqing have it? Chu Luiyue's lips curved up coldly. Whether it's possible or not, you'll know when you see it for yourself. Then, she looked at Yang Jianqing again. Do you still want to deny it this time? Yang Jianqing made up his mind and planned to deny it. I don't have that kind of thing on me. Why should I admit it? Don't slander me. Chu Luiyue almost laughed out loud. If I wasn't confident, do you think I'd do it? Yang Jianqing was stumped. Chu Luiyue picked up the dagger and played with it in her hands. If you know what's good for you, you'd better go down with me now and hand over the thing. Also, you have to explain clearly, so that you won't affect the others' competition. Otherwise, she paused and looked up. Yang Jianqing shuddered. Even though Chu Luiyue didn't say anything else, her gaze was enough. Yang Jianqing didn't know what he was going to face next, but he knew very well that he couldn't handle Chu Luiyue's methods. He forcefully suppressed the fear in his heart and said, "I'll go down with you for a check." Then he walked down the stage first. Chu Luiyue raised her brows and followed him. When the two of them reached the stage, the judges had already rushed over and stood at the side cautiously. The competition was still ongoing, but more people's gazes had already turned to this side. The atmosphere was tense. Emperor Jiawen knitted his brows. "Elder son, what's red blood goo?" This question was what the crowd wanted to ask. Sun Zhongyan patiently explained. "So, even though this kind of poison is hard to find, it's extremely vicious. Once you come into contact with it, you'll definitely die." Emperor Jiawen's face became increasingly stern. Chu Luiyue chuckled and added, "Your Majesty, there is one more thing that Elder Sun forgot to mention. If the red blood goo were to be roasted in the cauldron's flame, its toxicity would increase by several times, and it would spread out. Once inhaled, even if it was a small amount, it could still endanger one's life." This shocked Emperor Jiawen, and the crowd's expressions changed. "Are you serious?" Chu Luiyue gently nodded. "If you don't believe me, you can ask the other celestial physician." Emperor Jiawen looked at Cheng Lixue and the rest. As expected, he saw that their faces had turned ugly after hearing red blood goo. Even if he didn't ask, he knew that Chu Luiyue wasn't lying. Emperor Jiawen leaned forward and anxiously asked, "You mean that Yang Jianqing planned to do that just now?" Chu Luiyue glanced at Yang Jianqing and saw that his expression was becoming more and more flustered. That's right. The crowd was in an uproar. If Yang Jianqing really did that, then wouldn't the people sitting here be affected? Just the thought of it made them tremble in fear. Cheng Han saw that the situation was developing in an uncontrollable direction, so he anxiously stepped forward and angrily said, "Chu Luiyue, don't spout nonsense. If Yang Jianqing really did that, why are you the only one who saw it? Why didn't the others notice it? Could it be that you're stronger than all the heavenly doctors here?" Her words made sense, and quite a few people looked at Chu Luiyue suspiciously. Chu Luiyue asked in return, "Director Cheng Han, may I ask if you've seen red blood goo before?" Cheng Han was dazed, and he flung his sleeves. "Of course, I haven't seen such a despicable and sinister thing." Chu Luiyue smiled. "I've seen it before." Chu Xianmin, who was sitting in the crowd, tightly clutched the corner of her shirt. Her entire body was tense. Ever since Chu Luiyue said red blood goo, she had been uneasy, afraid that Chu Luiyue would implicate her. Now that she heard this, she was so nervous and afraid that she could not even breathe. If Chu Luiyue exposed her, she would be finished. To be honest, there is one person in our academy who has been poisoned by red blood goo. Chu Xianmin lowered her head, and her knuckles turned white. His name is Liao Zhongshu. Previously, he was poisoned for no reason, and was on the verge of death a few times. The teachers in the academy can testify to this. Zuorong said in a low voice, "That's right. Liao Zhongshu was indeed poisoned by red blood goo, and he's still bedridden." Cheng Han looked as if he had heard a joke. "Oh, you said that if one was poisoned by red blood goo, he would die without a doubt, and wouldn't even last a few days. How can your academy's student be poisoned by red blood goo until now? Could it be that you all saw wrongly? Or perhaps you all colluded to deceive me?" Zuorong and the other teachers' expressions were ugly. "Director Cheng Han, are you suspecting us? If you don't believe us, you can come to our academy. You can see if the poison in Liao Zhongshu's body is red blood goo. As a celestial physician, you can't not recognize this, right?" Cheng Han was speechless. It's all thanks to Luiyue that Liao Zhongshu can last until now. If she didn't come up with the prescription to temporarily suppress the poison in Liao Zhongshu's body, Liao Zhongshu wouldn't have survived. From Zuorong's point of view, Chu Luiyue could come up with such a shocking prescription, which was enough to prove many things. Thus, he was very confident in speaking up for Chu Luiyue. Haha, what a joke. Cheng Han was originally a little nervous, but he could not help but laugh when he heard this. This red blood goo is extremely sinister. Only a few celestial physicians here have seen it before, let alone the prescription to cure it. Who is Chu Luiyue? You actually dared to put this title on her head? I admit that she does have some talent as a martial artist and a mystic cultivator. However, don't you think it's ridiculous to say that she can suppress the red blood goose poison? Sun Zhongyan also smiled and calmly interrupted him. You're right. She is Martial Uncle's disciple. Digression. Something happened at home yesterday, and I couldn't open my eyes from crying. I barely managed to write 2 chapters. The remaining 3 chapters will be completed around 4 in the afternoon. After calculating, I owe 5 chapters, which is exactly 10,000. I'll make up for it in a few days. Myo mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 268. Dead silence. Not only Ching Han, but everyone present was stunned as well. Elder Sun only had one uncle master. The current dean of Tianlu Academy, a 5th-grade celestial physician, Yi Jiting. What did you say? Cheng Han's tongue seemed to be tied as he hesitantly spat out a sentence in disbelief. Sun Zhongyan smiled nonchalantly. I said, Uncle Master only accepted one disciple in his entire life. And that was Lu Yu. However, Uncle Master always kept a low profile, so not many people knew about this. However, Uncle Master had already personally written Lu Yu's name on the Academy's register. Thus, this was an indisputable fact. Cheng Han was speechless for a long time. Since Sun Zhongyan dared to say this in public, it must be true. The people from Tianlu Academy were shocked as well. Did I hear wrongly? Chu Luiyue is actually the dean's disciple? Elder Sun said it himself. How can it be false? I was wondering why I couldn't find out who Chu Luiyue's teacher was. So, my goodness, didn't the dean say that accepting a disciple was the most troublesome? How did he suddenly become Chu Luiyue's master? The dean rarely comes out, so not many people know about this. I only want to know one thing now. Is Chu Luiyue also talented as a celestial physician? He did not finish his sentence, but everyone was well aware of it. They could even see the same expression in each other's eyes. Even Mu Hongyu and the rest were stunned for a while. Their expressions were strange. Sinhu, did you know about this? I didn't. Hongyu, you didn't know either? It seems like no one knew. Gu Mifeng recalled what had happened in Wanling Mountain and laughed at himself. We're really slow on the uptake. She said that she only knew a little about it, but we actually believed her. They did not think so back then, but now that they thought about it, they felt that something was wrong. Chu Luiyue was too skillful in this aspect. How could she only know a little about it? Mu Hongyu's eyes gradually lit up. I have a feeling that the thigh we're hugging is even thicker than we imagined. Isn't Chu Luiyue a Xian cultivator? Fu Yinshan couldn't help but ask. Sun Zhongyan nodded. Of course, after she entered the academy, her main focus was indeed on being a mystic cultivator. However, this did not conflict with the fact that she was Martial Uncle's disciple. After all, she had gotten first place in the warrior tournament, hadn't she? Fu Yinshan opened his mouth, but realized that Sun Zhongyan's words made sense. But why did it seem like something was wrong? How could there be such a person who took a celestial physician as his master, cultivated as a mystic cultivator, and even beat other martial artists who were of a higher level? This was too ridiculous. The others' reactions were similar to Fu Yinshan's. They had seen geniuses before. In reality, those who were able to enter these 3 great academies were all people with enviable talent. But compared to Chu Luiyue, it instantly paled in comparison. Emperor Jiawen finally couldn't help but ask, Elder Sun, when did Elder Yi take in Chu Luiyue as his disciple? Why isn't there any news about this? Even though Tianlu Academy was independent of the royal family, and even Emperor Jiawen had to be polite to it, Emperor Jiawen only found out today that Elder Yi had taken in a disciple. Hence, he naturally felt a little awkward. More importantly, this disciple was Chu Luiyue, who was once known as a good-for-nothing. Sun Zhongyan lowered his head slightly and explained, Your Majesty, before Chu Luiyue entered Tianlu Academy, she already knew Martial Uncle and became his disciple. The crowd was even more shocked. Could it be that Chu Luiyue's Yuan Meridian recovered and became a genius because of Elder Yi? If that's the case, everything makes sense. However, Emperor Jiawen didn't continue asking about this. He just looked at Chu Luiyue with a complicated gaze. After a while he said, Lu Yu, you're very outstanding now. Back then, who would have thought that Chu Luiyue would become like this? She's a genius, and she's not an ordinary genius. The Chu Xianmen back then wasn't even half of what Chu Luiyue was now. He couldn't help but recall Rong Jin's expression when he mentioned Chu Luiyue. Of course, he could guess Rong Jin's thoughts. Back then, breaking off the engagement with Chu Luiyue was probably the decision he regretted the most. However, this matter was in the past, so it wasn't appropriate to mention it now. Chu Luiyue bent her knees and bowed. Your Majesty, you flatter me. Emperor Jiawen shook his head and smiled. No, you deserve it. The Empress was upset as she watched from the side. From the past until now, she had never liked Chu Luiyue. In the past, it was because Chu Luiyue was a good-for-nothing and wasn't good enough for Rong Jin. Even though she had become a prodigy now, one could tell that she was a ruthless character based on how Chu Luiyue treated the Chu family. If they really allowed Rong Jin to marry Chu Luiyue again, they definitely wouldn't have a good life. They had to stop it no matter what. Cheng Han spent a lot of effort to accept this matter. However, he still felt exceptionally upset, as if something was blocking his heart. He felt aggrieved and angry. But why didn't Chu Luiyue participate in the celestial physician competition? Chu Luiyue lazily said, I didn't. Because I didn't want to. The crowd was speechless. Over the years, many students yearned for the Qing Jiao competition, and the celestial physician competition was even more so. However, when it came to Chu Luiyue, why did it seem like it didn't matter? Cheng Han sneered and said, You didn't want to. You didn't want to? Is it because you don't have the right? Just as he finished his sentence, he noticed the strange gazes that the crowd was giving him, and he immediately regretted it. Who was Yi Zhiding? He was one of the most outstanding celestial physician in the past few decades. To be able to catch his eye, he was definitely not a mediocre person. Yet, he actually openly doubted Chu Luiyue here. Wasn't that equivalent to doubting Yi Zhiding? The key was that he wasn't Yi Zhiding's match at all, so it was especially laughable for him to say this. Chu Luiyue shrugged nonchalantly. I'll answer this question later, but it's better to solve Yang Jianqing's problem now. Now, everyone should have no more doubts about what I said just now, right? Cheng Han decided to go all out. All right. As long as you show me the evidence, you can do whatever you want with it. Thank you, Director Cheng Han. I hope you can remember what you said now later. Chu Luiyue followed his advice and finally looked at Yang Jianqing, who was already drenched in cold sweat. Yang Jianqing suddenly stretched out his hands and gritted his teeth. You can check however you want. If I say there's nothing, there's nothing. Chu Luiyue's gaze lightly swept past his hands. It was very clean, as if he was afraid that Chu Luiyue wouldn't believe him, and also as if he wanted to prove himself. Yang Jianqing directly took off his outerwear and loudly said, I don't have anywhere to hide anything on me. Is it clear enough now? As he was a little anxious, he even tore his outerwear in a hurry. Coupled with his flushed face and messy hair, he looked especially disheveled. Chu Luiyue paused, and the corners of his lips slowly curled up. Did I say that I was going to search your body? Chapter 269. Yang Jianqing was dumbfounded. You tricked me? His expression became a little ferocious, as if he was about to rush up and fight Chu Luiyue to the death. He had made such a scene in front of so many people. He had lost all his face, and Chu Luiyue actually said such a sentence. I only asked you to hand over the red blood goo. I didn't search your body, and I didn't ask you to take off your clothes. Yang Jianqing was so angry that he almost vomited blood. With great difficulty, he finally found his last shred of reason and said sternly, No matter what, I have already proved to everyone that I don't have the red blood goo on me. You slandered me like this. I won't let this matter go. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. You don't have it on you. But does that prove that you didn't bring it? Yang Jianqing was stunned. What do you mean? Chu Luiyue pointed at the overturned cauldron on the arena. We will know soon whether you have anything to do with the red blood goo. As she spoke, She walked towards the cauldron again. Yang Jianqing's heart was empty. No. He ran in front of Chu Luiyue without thinking and stopped her. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Why not? I just want to check the cauldron. If you didn't do anything, why are you so nervous? Yang Jianqing panicked even more when he was exposed. He wanted to continue stopping Chu Luiyue, but there were already many people looking at him suspiciously. He also realized that doing so would only make him look even stranger. His legs were trembling. He didn't dare to step back, but he also didn't dare to step forward. He muttered, "No, no." Seeing his reaction, everyone also felt that something was wrong. Cheng Han felt a sense of unease. This scene was all too familiar. It seemed to be the same when Chu Luiyue exposed Heng Jingchua. Chu Luiyue looked at Yang Jianqing mockingly. Did he think he could stop her? With a slight movement of her feet, her figure flashed and she silently bypassed Yang Jianqing. He quickly rushed towards the arena. In a blink of an eye, she already walked to the side of the medicinal cauldron. She bent down and gently scraped the edge of the cauldron with the dagger in her hand. A ball of red powder appeared on the shiny dagger. Under the illumination of the sun, it flickered with a cold and strange light. Yang Jianqing's face paled. His movements were so subtle that even the celestial physician present did not notice it. How did Chu Luiyue discover it? This is red blood goo. Chu Luiyue carefully examined the crimson powder on the dagger. If I'm not wrong, you put this thing in when you put the red root into the cauldron to refine it, right? The crimson root burned in the cauldron and soon turned into red powder, mixing with the red blood goo and making it difficult to distinguish. Moreover, the high temperature would also cause this thing to automatically scatter on the inner walls of the medicinal cauldron, making it even more undetectable from the outside. If the burning time is sufficient, for example, when you finish refining the pill, this period of time is enough for these red blood goo to completely burn and scatter. Chu Luiyue's tone was calm, as if she was talking about something unimportant. However, the contents of her words set off a huge wave in everyone's hearts. Yang Jianqing, is what Lu Yu said true? Sun Zhongyan asked sternly. If this was true, then Yang Jianqing was preparing to make a move on everyone here. The severity of this matter was far greater than Huan Jingchua's. Yang Jianqing's lips trembled as he spat out a sentence with great difficulty. That's not red blood goo. It's not. Then why don't you try it yourself? Chu Luiyue suggested. Yang Jianqing immediately took a few steps back. No. And, didn't you say that this is not red blood goo? Why are you so afraid? Since so many people here have not seen this thing before, why don't you open everyone's eyes? With that, Chu Luiyue's gaze turned sharp as he flung that dagger out. Chi! That dagger drew a bright and straight line in the air as it flew towards Yang Jianqing. Yang Jianqing immediately wanted to dodge, but how could he be Chu Luiyue's opponent? Before he could run a few steps, that dagger directly pierced his calf. Ah! Yang Jianqing cried out in pain as he staggered and knelt on the ground. His calf was already bleeding profusely. Chu Luiyue, how dare you? Cheng Han was about to make a move, but was stopped by Sun Zhongyan without batting an eyelid. Brother Cheng Han, Yang Jianqing has already said that it's not red blood goo. Why are you so anxious? Don't worry, Lu Yu knows his limits. The wound on his calf is not fatal. Our academy will provide the medicinal herbs for this wound. If that really isn't red blood goo, I will personally apologize. At this point, Cheng Han had no other choice. Quick look. His leg. It was unknown who suddenly shouted this. Cheng Han took a closer look and was shocked. Yang Jianqing's calf was rapidly swelling. Moreover, the blood flowing out of the wound was gradually turning into a strange black color. The aura on his body quickly withered. If there was nothing wrong with that thing, and it was just a simple dagger piercing through his calf, this situation would definitely not have happened. Sun Zhongyan sneered. Brother Cheng Han, as a celestial physician, you should know better than me whether this is red blood goo or not, right? Cheng Han was speechless. He only felt that his face was being ripped off and ruthlessly trampled on. Yang Jianqing's entire body trembled like a sieve. He was extremely frightened. Chu Luiyue's dagger, just now was contaminated with too much red blood goo. So much weight, and now all of it was on his body. Moreover, it had directly seeped into his body from the wound and spread extremely quickly. He hugged his leg and finally could not continue pretending. He began to plead in horror. No, I don't want to die. Dean, elders, save me. I don't want to die. At this point, what else did he not understand? He crawled towards Tai Yin Academy with tears and mucus flowing down his face. He was covered in blood and looked extremely pathetic. Stop him! Chung Han was almost screaming at the top of his lungs. The judges immediately took action. A rope flew out and tightly bound Yang Jianqing. Chu Luiyue walked towards him. Lu Yu, be careful. Sun Zhongyan reminded him. Chu Luiyue did not stop walking. Don't worry, Elder Sunday. I just have some things that I want to ask him. As she spoke, she was already in front of Yang Jianqing. She looked at him condescendingly and enunciated each word clearly. Who sent you? Yang Jianqing sobbed. He did not dare to look at her or speak. Chu Luiyue inched closer, and her voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible. If you tell me, I can help you detoxify. Yang Jianqing was stunned. Otherwise, how do you think Liao Zhongshu survived until now? Chu Luiyue said softly. A hint of struggle flashed across Yang Jianqing's eyes. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Yang Jianqing clearly knew more than Chu Xianmin. If he was willing to talk, Yang Jianqing opened his mouth as if he wanted to speak, but he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Chu Luiyue knew that something was wrong, and immediately retreated. A terrifying force suddenly surged out of Yang Jianqing's body. Boom! Digression. There was good news. My swollen eyes have recovered. There was also bad news. It's about 5 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 270. A ball of fire suddenly exploded from Yang Jianqing's body. Along with this terrifying explosion, his body also completely exploded. The fire quickly swallowed the blood and flesh that splattered everywhere. Chu Luiyue immediately used her crystal barrier to block that terrifying power. Everything happened too quickly. By the time everyone realized what had happened, Yang Jianqing's body had already been completely destroyed by that ball of fire. Not even a complete corpse was left behind. Damn it! Chu Luiyue cursed under her breath. She had been worried that such a situation would happen, so she specially came forward to ask, but she did not expect that. The last ball of fire quickly dissipated as well. There was nothing left on the ground, except for a small patch of burn marks. Many people in the crowd sucked in a cold breath. In less than 5 minutes, not only was Yang Jianqing exposed for using the red blood goo, but he also self-destructed and died. Not even his corpse was left behind. This time, his crime was completely confirmed, but there was no way to prove his innocence. Chu Luiyue looked around. That cold and obscure aura did not appear again. However, she had a feeling that Yang Jianqing was definitely related to that person. Whether it was the red blood goo he brought or his self-destruction, it was obvious that someone had manipulated him. She had seen clearly that Yang Jianqing did not want to die. If she had more time, she might have been able to get something useful out of him. However, the other party was too powerful and did not leave any chance for her to do so. Yang Jianqing's life was directly ended. The square fell into a long, eerie silence. After a while, Sun Zhongyan said, "Accidents happen frequently in this Qing Jiao competition. It was our negligence. However, Dean Qinghan, shouldn't you explain yourself? First it was Heng Jingshua, then it was Yang Jianqing. What exactly happened? If the red blood goo was not discovered, all of us here today would have suffered. Dean Qinghan, can you bear this responsibility?" There were at least tens of thousands of people in the square. There were also many powerful people and geniuses from the 3 major academies. There was also the royal family of country Yaochun. If anything happened to these people, it would be unimaginable. Chung Han was also panicking. One Heng Jingshua wasn't enough. Now there was another Yang Jianqing. There was no way he could clear his name no matter how hard he tried. I really don't know. Fu Yinshan laughed perfunctorily. You're the dean. Now that something like this has happened, you think you can just say I don't know, and let it go? Chung Han almost choked. He felt that he was at odds with country Yaochun. Nothing good happened every time he came. Chung Han took a deep breath in and bowed to Emperor Jiawen. Your Majesty, please forgive me. I won't shirk away from this matter. After the Qing Jiao competition ends, I'll investigate this matter together with Hung Jingshua's matter. If I discover any problems, I will definitely not tolerate it. Emperor Jiawen also took this matter to heart. But since Chung Han had already said so, he couldn't continue to be aggressive, so he could only raise his hand. We know Dean Chung Han's character. He definitely wouldn't allow his students to do such a thing. Now that the Qing Jiao competition has yet to end, let's wait until everything is settled before we discuss this matter. Since the person with the highest status had spoken, everyone naturally wouldn't harp on it. Sun Zhongyan took a deep look at Chung Han. Your Majesty is magnanimous, but we definitely can't put this matter aside. Dean Chung Han, we'll wait for you to give us a satisfactory answer. Fu Yinshan also agreed. That's right. We have plenty of time and patience. This matter has serious implications, and we can't just sit back and do nothing. If not, we won't even know when we'll die. Chung Han felt very aggrieved, but he could only agree like this. Since this matter has temporarily come to an end, we should talk about my matter next, right? Situ Xingqian, who had been silent at the side, finally spoke. At this point, the way she looked at Chu Luyue was different from before. She didn't expect Chu Luyue to be Yi Zhiding's disciple. Master had always been regretful about losing to Yi Zhiding, and he had mentioned it a few times in the past few years. Of course, she knew how powerful Yi Zhiding was, so she felt even more uncomfortable about this matter. She really didn't understand how Chu Luyue was chosen by Yi Zhiding. Chu Luyue met Situ Xingqian's gaze openly. Sure. Even though I wasn't targeting you when I attacked back then, and I could also ensure that no extra force would affect you, I'll compensate you since your pill formation was interrupted because of this. Situ Xingqian's expression was a little strange. Compensate? You destroyed a pill that I was about to complete. How are you going to compensate me? Chu Luyue lifted his chin. Don't you have another set of herbs beside you? Situ Xingqian's expression changed slightly. You want me to refine it again? Not to mention that I don't have enough time now. Even if I do, I don't have that much strength. When I formed the pill previously, I already felt that my strength was about to be depleted. I definitely can't try again now. Chu Luyue blinked. No. I said that I'll compensate you, so I'll naturally do it. What? Situ Xingqian didn't understand at that moment. Chu Luyue explained. I'm saying that I'll replace you to refine the pill for the second time. After the pill is refined, it'll be considered your result. How about that? At this moment, not only Situ Xingqian, but even the other people's expressions became very strange. Chu Luyue's suggestion doesn't seem to have any problems, but there seems to be something wrong. Situ Xingqian was so angry that she laughed. This is the compensation you're talking about? Chu Luyue nodded. Yeah. Why? You think it's not enough? Situ Xingqian was speechless. How confident is Chu Luyue to think that he can use such a method to compensate me? I started memorizing prescriptions since I was 4 years old, and had been cultivating diligently for many years. I can only barely form pills now. Chu Luyue shouldn't have been Yi Zhiding's disciple for too long. I wonder if he's already a stage 2 doctor. With such standards, he wants to refine pills for me? What a joke. Situ Xingqian suppressed the mockery and disdain in her heart and calmly said, That means that no matter what grade you refine, it'll be considered my result? I'd like to ask, but your current celestial physician grade is? Chu Luyue could tell that she didn't think much of it, but he didn't care and smiled. It's hard to say my grade, but you'll naturally know later. This is the only solution now. If you don't agree, I can't do anything about it. Situ Xingqian sneered in her heart. Okay. I want to see how Chu Luyue will have the cheek to say that it's my result after I refine a pile of trash. Digression. The weather was bleak, and the temperature difference was more than 20 degrees. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 271. Chu Luyue walked to the competition venue and stood at Situ Xingqian's previous position. Situ Xingchen failed to produce the pill, and only a handful of black ash was left in the cauldron. Chu Luyue picked up the prescription and looked at it before cleaning the cauldron. Situ Xingchen coldly watched from the side. Countless pairs of eyes below the competition venue also gathered on Chu Luyue. They were curious, doubtful, and excited. Isn't Chu Luyue too confident of herself? She actually went up personally. She's Elder Ye's disciple. She should be quite capable, right? Didn't they say that even though she passed all 3 examinations when she entered Tianlu Academy, she was the worst in the Celestial Physician examination? If she didn't produce anything, it would be too embarrassing. The crowd discussed fervently. Chu Luyue acted as if she didn't hear anything, as she gently placed her slender hand on the cauldron. Immediately after, a cluster of crimson-red flames abruptly sprang up within the medicinal cauldron. Chu Luyue casually picked up an ingredient at the side. It was a reddish-brown fruit the size of a fist sky cashew. When Chu Luyue placed it into the fire rapidly surrounded it. The skin of the sky cashew quickly shrank. Situ Xingchen stood closer, so she could see it more clearly. When she saw Chu Luyue actually put the sky cashew into the cauldron to refine it, disdain flashed across her heart. The sky cashew was extremely fragile and soft, especially the mature ones. A light touch might even break through its skin. All of its medicinal effects were stored in the juice inside, so when refining it, one had to carefully draw out the juice inside. But the most important thing was that once the sky cashew's juice flowed out and came into contact with the air, the medicinal effects would quickly disappear. Hence, when using the sky cashew, the celestial physician would usually leave it for last. This way, they could preserve its effects to the greatest extent. After Chu Luyue went up, the first thing she refined was the sky cashew. It seems like she's really ignorant. I really don't know how Yi Zhiding teaches his only disciple. Chu Luyue's actions clearly attracted the other celestial physician's attention. Elder Emotsong couldn't help but laugh. She's indeed Elder Ye's disciple. She's really unique, and actually put the sky cashew in first. Even I can't compare to her courage. Elder's expression expressionless as he calmly said, "It's not too late to comment after the results. When the results are out." Haha, that's right. There was only one set of herbs here. If the sky cashew was destroyed, then it would naturally be over. Elder mocked him. I didn't expect you. Of course, I didn't expect her to not know such basic knowledge. Glizzzss. Even. Of Chu of Chun. Of his. Of him of his of his of him. On. Elder Emotsong choked and shut his mouth with an ugly expression. Chung Lixue didn't even have the time to care about the two of them, as he watched the competition nervously. Now, Nanfeng Academy only had one seedling left, Lung Chuan. He's at the crucial moment of pill formation. Only Situ Xingchen was left on Taiyin Academy's side, and she was replaced by Chu Luyue. There was basically no hope. Tianlu Academy's Ji Zixing was the slowest among them. He had only just started his attempt, so his skills were limited. As long as Lung Chuan succeeded, he could basically take first place. Zuorong and the rest were also watching nervously. Why did Luyu put the sky cashew in first? They couldn't figure it out either. If he failed then... Wait! It's been a while. Why isn't the sky cashew broken yet? Zuorong frowned and mumbled. According to the sky cashew's characteristics, it should break apart on its own after being placed in the fire. But until now, the sky cashew in Chu Luyue's cauldron was still fine. Even though its surface had shrunk into a small ball, it was still intact. Suddenly, an idea popped up in his mind. Could it be that Luyu is planning to refine the sky cashew like this? The surrounding celestial physician teachers looked at him strangely, clearly not understanding what he meant. Zuorong suppressed his excitement and said, "What I mean is that she seems to be planning to extract all the juice inside before drawing it out." How's that possible? A teacher at the side immediately retorted. The ripe sky cashew is extremely fragile and can't withstand the roasting of the fire. Unless she can control the fire to a certain extent, she can extract the juice without causing it to break. But that requires too much control. It's impossible. At this point, the few of them suddenly fell silent. Chu Luyue seems to have done it. The perfectly intact sky cashew is the best proof. Zuorong couldn't help but look up at Chu Luyue, only to see her calm expression as she started to put in the second ingredient. The sky cashew quietly floated in the fire. Chu Luyue indeed has such an idea. Zuorong swallowed his saliva with much difficulty. Even I might not be able to do this. This is because the requirement for an alchemist's talent is too high. Extracting the sky cashew isn't a difficult task. But to be able to do it so meticulously, it means that one must have sharp senses and control. Even though his level was higher than Chu Luyue's, and he was more capable, he believed that he might not be able to do it as well as Chu Luyue. This is probably the aura of a celestial physician that the director mentioned before. Someone softly muttered, "This level of talent can only be a gift from the heavens. It can't be obtained even if one begged for it." I finally know why the director was willing to take her in as his disciple. Zuorong bitterly laughed. This girl is even stronger than I imagined. He thought that he had already thought highly of Chu Luyue, but he didn't expect that he still underestimated her. It's no wonder she's so calm. Even if she just started to cultivate as a celestial physician, it's destined that her future achievements will far surpass ours. Situ Xingqian's talent is not bad, but it's a pity that she can't compare to Lu Yu. Haha, this is a good thing. That old fellow, Cheng Han, is very arrogant, and he's even more so after taking Situ Xingqian in as his disciple. Think about it. Every time we talk about Situ Xingqian and the celestial physician competition these few days, he looks like he's going to win. Isn't it because he thinks that Situ Xingqian's talent is unparalleled? I just don't know if Lu Yu can produce pills. She just started cultivating not long ago, right? Even though she's talented, she can't do it without enough force to support her. Zuorong listened to the few of them talk, and couldn't help but smile delightedly. So what? If we can see it, I don't believe that Cheng Han can't see it. If Lu Yue can replace Situ Xingqian to refine medicine, they'll be letting them off easy. Love Network has a better reading experience. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.